Peace everybody, welcome back to Rise of the Moors. Today I want to talk about, well, I've been getting comments on YouTube. People want to know more about a template of how to create a trust. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to use my trust as an example. And I'm going to talk about conversion. I'm going to talk about chain of title, allodial title, mortgages, Indian titles, some of the stuff I already talked about before, but that's what I have planned for today. So let's start. I'm going to start off with Prophet Joel speaks to the nations. If you have race pride and love your race, join the Moorish Science Temple of America and become part of this divine movement. Then you will have the power to redeem your race, because you will know who you are and who your forefathers were. Because where there is unity, there is strength. Together we stand, divided we fall. Come, good people, because I, the prophet, sent to redeem this nation from mental slavery which you have now, need every one of you who think that your condition can be better. This is a field open to strong men and women to uplift the nation and take your place in the affairs of men. If the Europeans and other nations are helping me, why not you? It is your problem. The Negro problem is being solved only as it can, and that is by the Moorish national divine movement. If you have a nation, you must have a free national name in order to be recognized by this nation as an American citizen. This is what was meant when it said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you," by the prophet. And this is caveat emptor. Moors are men, upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones and follow the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. They are fortified by the impregnable doctrine built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It is therefore folly at its greatest height for smelly culprits with their insidious plans to invade such a realm. They try and try, but their own bad planning brings down wrath upon their heads like the sword old Democulus had. Intrigue and scurrilous cunnings find a difficult path to travel within the ranks of the Moors. This is so because the Moorish movement has been well planned by Prophet Noble Drew Ali, whose latent powers are abundant, unknown, and may be called into action as a matter of defense at any moment. Prophet Noble Drew Ali knows the people within his ranks who are interested. They are the vanguard of the movement as the Moorish hordes increase here in America. All of the Moors are active, not passive. A member's interest can only be in one direction, and having traveled over the road years before, the prophet knows where every member is along the road. A few feet below is another road where schemers work, where traitors grin and culprits bask in the sun. They think they are on the same road with the true Moors, but the Moors are high above on a pinnacle where they might view the destructionists as they fall for the last time and their bones bleach in the sultry midday sun. Hungry scavengers flying high catch scent, devour and leave crying out, caveat emptor. Cast out the dead carcass. The Moors high above see the plotters, purveyors, the worst that exist, hurl themselves downward by their own works as the hawks await. This is to be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me in the movement now by the same people on our side of the nation that claim I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so that they might take charges of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds, the ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement, will be remembered. This is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past few years. And this is to the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam. This is the instructions from your prophet, noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is on now. But the weak can comprehend it not. And the end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, noble Drew Ali. And that's why many hearts have turned to stone, and many have eyes to see and cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded by their sins. These are the trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect the movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good works. Peace. Your divine prophet, noble Drew Ali. And prophet warns all Muslims to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the laws as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet noble Drew Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace. Noble Drew Ali.
His name is Drew Ali, by Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the Egyptian adept student, born January 8th, 1886, North Carolina, of Cherokee descent, a true Moorish American. Chapter 48 of the Circle 7 Quran. The covenant of the great God Allah, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be longer upon the earthland, which the Lord thy God Allah hath given thee. Come all ye Asiatics of America, and hear the truth about your nationality and birthrights, because you are not Negroes. Learn of your forefathers' ancient and divine creed, that you will learn to love instead of hate. We are all trying to uplift fallen humanity. Come and link yourselves with the families of nations. We honor all true and divine prophets. Chapter 47. Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. The inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Old man Cush and his family were the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family were second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of Amexem, the first true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the father and the son. The dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa, and the west and southwest was his father's dominion of Africa. In the later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa, across the great Atlantis, even onto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands, before the great earthquake which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. The river Nile was dredged and made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt in order to trade with the surrounding kingdoms. Also, the Niger River was dredged by the great pharaohs of Egypt in those ancient days for trade, and it extended eastward from the river Nile, westward across the great Atlantic. It was used for trade and transportation. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the holy land of Canaan. Where your ancient forefathers were, you are today, without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from his decent nature of his forefathers, unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator Allah himself. And right here, this map, sometimes called the supercontinent, Mapamundi, Pangea, and at one time all of the earth was called Asia. This is why Moors refer to themselves as Asiatics or Asiatic Africans. As you can see, Africa is a mexum, and North America would be considered Northwest Africa or Northwest Mexum. Mexico would be considered Central Africa or Central Mexum. Chile, Brazil, Costa Rica, Colombia would be considered Southwest Africa or Southwest Mexum. Ethiopia is about right here, so that would be the demarcation line of a mexum. These holy and divine laws are from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the uniting of the Moorish Science Temple of America. These laws are to be strictly preserved by the members of all the temples of the Moorish Science Temple of America, that they will learn to open their meeting and guide it according to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Every subordinate temple of the Grand Major Temple is to form under the covenant of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and to create their own laws and customs, in conjunction with the laws of the Holy Prophet and the Grand Temple. I, the Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, was sent by the great God Allah to warn all Asiatics of America to repent from their sinful ways, before the great and awful day that is sure to come. The time has come when every nation must worship under its own vine and fig tree, and every tongue must confess his own. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery, due to the fact that they honored not the creed and principles of their forefathers. This is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father, and strayed after the gods of Europe, whom they knew nothing. Black, according to science, means death. Black, according to etymology, means pale. If you have ever attended a melanated person's funeral, you will notice at times makeup has been placed on their face to cover up their pale skin. Also, in movies, zombies, vampires, ghosts, etc. are all pale. the living dead. According to law, Negro, the Latin word for black, are considered colored persons. So Negroes are considered colored persons. A colored person, Negro, black man, West Indian, Indian, Spanish, Latin American, Afro-Rican, Puerto-Rican, etc., according to the United States Census Bureau, are all colored people, meaning they are all civiliter mortuus, civilly dead, people who have lost their civil rights, dead in the eyes of the law. Black equals Negro, equals colored, equals Indian, equals pale, equals dead. This is verse 9 again from Noble Drew Ali. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all of the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the Holy Land of Canaan. Now, if you look up the etymology of the word race, it means to shoot out. And we all know we all shot out from the same humans. So there's only one human race. There's only one race. There is no black race. There is no yellow race. There is no brown race. There is no white race. It's the human race. And humans are identified by their nationalities, not the tone of their skin. So here we have the etymology of the word black. It's an adjective. And this is from Noah Webster's 1828 American Dictionary on the English Language. Now, etymology is the true, real, or actual meaning of a word. Etymology is the study of a word's root and how it is transliterated into different languages. Now, what we need to know about transliteration is that if we break down the word, trans means to change, liter means the letter, so it's just the changing of the letters. So as the word black changes, as an example, in the German language, B-L-E-I-C-H. In the English, it's B-L-A-C-K. So the E and the I switch to an A, and the C and the H. The C stays, and the H gets replaced by a K. So the letters change, but the word means the same thing. Etymology is purposely omitted in schools where all people attend. And I'm talking about Asiatic, African, dark-skinned people, Moors. It is a third grade lesson and is a fundamental tool used in reading. The lack of the etymon degree is where this saying comes from. Don't worry about black people. They will never compete because they cannot read. That saying is hinting towards the fact that we are purposely not taught etymology in school. Now, the etymology of the word black means pale, to become pale, to turn white, to become black, to blacken, to isolate, to expose to the sun, or to bleach, also to lighten, to flash, pale, wan, bleak. It is remarkable that black, Blake, and bleach are all radically one word. Their primary sense seems to be pale, wan, or sallow. Now, if you've ever been to the beach and you see any European people who are really pale, as soon as their skin is exposed to the sun, it's kind of like a flash, or the skin becomes really bright. They are the real pale people. They are the true black people. Black means pale. So think about that. If you ever go to the beach, you see like a pale skin Irish person, you'll see how their skin kind of radiates when it's hit by the sun and it kind of flashes. They're the true black people. Civics is a science that runs government. Civics is the fundamental understanding of how civilization is ran. And etymology is one of the factors in deciding the legal and lawful definitions of words, terms, phrases, and ideas. I am particularly placing emphasis on the etymon because in our societies, connotative linguistics, or what you would call slang, is heavily promoted in order to take our minds off the factual principles that govern language. It may appear that slang is harmless, but if used in the wrong context, it can be very dangerous, as all law is specific. This principle in language is exactly what the Tower of Babel represents in the Bible. See Genesis 11, verses 1 through 9. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they formed a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. And then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, "If as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand each other." Now, when they say the whole world had the same language, the one language, and a common speech, they're talking about everyone knows the principles of the etymon. It says, as if one people speaking the same language, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. So the whole purpose was to confuse the language so we won't understand each other. So whenever we tell our people as Moors that we're not blacks and Indians, they think black is an African identity when the word black itself means pale. So there's confusion in the language, so we can't grow as a people. That's the principles behind the etymology. The word black in the Latin language translates to the word Negro. According to Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, the word Negro is defined as follows. The word Negro means a black man, one descendant from the African race, and does not commonly include a mulatto. The term Negro means necessarily persons of color, but not every person of color is a Negro. Now, according to the same Law Dictionary, here's the definition of the word color. Color, in appearance, a semblance, or simulacrum, as distinguished from that which is real. Now remember, etymology is used when in determining the definition of legal terms, phrases, and ideas. Our people think, since they don't know the etymon, that colored means skin complexion. Color means an appearance, as distinguished from that which is real. And Noble Drew Ali said, color is anything painted, stained, varnished, or dyed. So as an example, if you go to a painter's blank easel and paint a mountain range, the easel's actually blank, but it appears to be a mountain range. Further, color of authority is the semblance or presumption of authority. It's a presumption of authority, not actual authority. Sustaining the acts of a public officer, which is derived from his apparent title. It appears that he has a title. To the office or form of writ or other process in his hands, apparently valid and regular. So color of authority is fake authority, because the word color is an appearance as distinguished from that which is real. It has nothing to do with skin tone. color of law, the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Again, color does not mean brown skin. It means a fake. Color of office, an act unjustly done by the continuance of an office being grounded upon corruption. So since a fake office is corrupt, to which the office is as a shadow in color. Color is fake. So when you say you're colored, here's the definition of colored. By common usage in America. It doesn't say in the world. By common usage in America. This term, it does not say identity, this term in such phrases as colored persons, the colored race, colored men, and the like, is used to designate Negroes or persons of the African race, including all persons of mixed blood descendant from Negro ancestry. It has also been held that there is no legal technical signification to the phrase colored person, which the courts are bound judicially to know. Now, why? It's not because your skin is brown. It's because the word color means fake. So if you say you're a Negro black person, since Negro means black, means colored, you're saying you're a fake person. You're saying I am appearing to be a person as distinguished from a real person. So again, the word colored and color has nothing to do with skin tone. It is used to designate those who are appearing to be people from those who are actually people. According to the United States Census Bureau, Indians are classified as colored people. According to law, all blacks, Negroes, coloreds, Indians, West Indians, Latin Americans, Puerto Ricans, Afro-Ricans, Latinos, and Spanish people are at law civiliter mortuus. Civiliter mortuus is a Latin/legal phrase, according to Black's Law Dictionary, is defined as follows. Civiliter mortuus, civilly dead, dead in the eyes of the law. The condition of one who has lost his civil rights and capacities and is considered or accounted dead in law. Again, blacks, Negroes, coloreds, Indians, West Indians, Latin Americans, Puerto Ricans, Afro-Ricans, Latinos, and Spanish people are at law civiliter mortuus. That is their legal status. To get out of that legal status, you must nationalize. As nationality corrects your political status. Your political status pertains to your rights, duties, and capacities and incapacities to call into force your rights, as well as to manage your own affairs. Negro, black, colored, Indian, Spanish, West Indian, none of those are nationalities. This is why Drew Ali said, if you do nothing else, declare your nationality. Now, knowing that a lot of our people don't know who they are, here's my attempt to connect us back to our lost estate. Peace. Moorish dominions. Now, I did this book to give our people a sense of ownership of the land that's at their feet. I also did, his name is Drew Ali, to introduce our people who might not be aware of him to him. This is your prophet. You need to know who this man is. And this is, I would say, like an additive, I guess, to kind of show you more in detail of what he was saying. You know? So, Moorish dominions, a sense of ownership. Jus hereditas, the right of inheritance. Jus post limine, the right of post limine, the right or claim of a person who had been restored to the possession of a thing or to a former condition, to be considered as though he had never been deprived of it. Now, what our people need to realize is, as Moorish Americans, or as Moors period, we have a right to inheritance of this land that we're on. And that post-limity is to restore ourselves back to our national status of our titles of Il, Bey, Dey, Ali, and Al, because as Negro, Black, Colored, Indian, Spanish, we have nothing. So we have the right to just post-limity to be restored to our status as if we never lost it, because it's still in our bloodline. We just forgot we were Moors. We just forgot where our empire was. Drew Ali brought that back to us. What shall we call him? So often, our various journalists find trouble in selecting the proper name for the Moorish American. Some say Negro. Another will brand him race man. Still another will call him Afro-American. And then came colored, dark American, coon, shine, the brethren, and your folks. It is indeed a hard matter to find something suitable for the various occasions where a title needs to be used. It is that these people have no proper name. Did they have a national name when they first were brought to these shores in the early parts of the 17th century? Because most of our people think that they're slaves. So if you came from over there in Africa, you came from a nation, so what was that name? Mm-hmm. If so, what was it? Did not the land from which they were forced have a name? It now appears a good idea for those whose duty it is to write for the various journals to find out what the national name of the forefathers of these peoples was. If you're writing that we came from Africa, don't say a black people, identify what their nationality was. Mm-hmm. If you're claiming to be a journalist or a scholar or an educated person, claiming that we came from somewhere else. Also, look into the history of the founders of civilization and see who they were and where they stood in the building of the present civilization. Probably 2 hours in a up-to-date library would serve to relieve the strain of our men of letters. When the occasion presents itself for a title for these people, the matter of the various names given to these 22 million people with all, with all colors of every race of the globe was an act of European psychology. Now that given all these different names was to cause division in our minds. Mm-hmm. They gave him a name, then defined it as something inferior to theirs, white. They defined as a color of purity, black. They say represents everything of evil. The Negro, as they were called in this nation, had no nation to which they might look with pride. Their history starts with the close of the Civil War, or more properly with the beginning, with his being forced to serve someone else. Thus, he is separated from his illustrious history of his forefathers, who were the founders of the first civilization of the Old World. This matter should be looked into with a hope of correcting it. So at that time, 1913, 1928, 1929, right now is the information age, so-called 2017. Our people have more of a, they connect more to Egypt, you know what I mean, that they do now. But back then, to my understanding, they weren't doing that. They had less access to information. Mm-hmm. Drew Ali just brought it all, you know what I mean? We commonly, connotatively, and erroneously use the adjective black in regards to any dark-skinned person. Often, we refer to many people as black, or our people will force a false history on others saying their people came from black people. As an example, many of our people insist that Haitians, Dominicans, Tainos, so-called Puerto-Ricans, and other people come from black people. The intent behind that statement, the intent behind the statement that they all stem from black people is true, but the statement is wrong. Because black people aren't black, they're Moors. We are not black, we are Moors. Those Dominicans, Haitians, Tainos, etc. do not come from blacks. They are descendants of Moors. hence the Spanish word morena in moreno. The Moors of North America have been branded black by European colonial occupiers of our land and in order to strip us of our illustrious history. Our ancient Moabite, Canaanite, and Hittite bloodlines tie us to the ancient Olmecs of Central America. Now think back to that Pangea map, Asia map that I showed you earlier where all the continents connected. The Aztecs, Mexico, even the Dogon of Mali. Our ancient ancestors are the possessors of the great ancient cities and kingdoms such as Sumer, Mahdi, Timbuktu, Carthage, Cordoba, Mauritania, that's North Africa, and Tamari, which was one of the names of Egypt, or what we call Kemet today. Our disconnect from recognizing our ancient bloodline, nationality, and heritage is the very reason why the pale-skinned black nations of Europe have been administrating the earth. The following maps, excerpts, definitions, and annotations will be used as ancillary supports in order to prove that indeed we are Moors. Now here is the definition of, excuse that typo, black, a Moor, from Merriam-Webster's Dictionary 11th edition. Black a Moor. Noun, a Negro, any dark-skinned person. And you see right here it says black, lowercase, the adjective black, lowercase, and then the noun Moor, capital M, because it's a proper noun. So these people who think that they're black are actually Moors. This is from a regular dictionary. Definition of Moor from Merriam-Webster's 11th edition. Moor, Moors are known as a sea-fretting people, to make fast with or as if with cables, lines, or anchors, to secure a boat by mooring, to anchor, to be made fast. So when you're stopping a boat, you're mooring the boat, because we're known as a sea-fretting people. Moor, Middle English, that's what that is, that's the etymon, it's a noun. M-E means Middle English, Moor. From French, from Latin, Moros, inhabitants of Mauritania, one of the Arab and Berber conquerors of Spain. So Arabs and Berbers are Moors. Definition of Moor from the Random House Dictionary of the English Language, the unabridged edition. Moor, to secure a ship, as a verb transitive. So as a verb, it's to secure a ship. Moor, noun, a Muslim of the mixed Berber and Arab people inhabiting Northwest Africa. Remember, Pangea, Northwest Africa is North America. A member of this group that invaded and conquered Spain in the 8th century AD. Definition of Moor from the Barnhart Dictionary of Etymology, the origins of American English words. So remember, etymology is the origin of words. Moor, inhabitant of Mauritania, an ancient country in North Africa. Moors were commonly supposed to be very dark in color. We already know black means pale, so very dark in color. Definition of a Moro from Merriam-Webster's 11th edition. Moros, Spanish, literally Moor, from Latin, moros. It's a noun. A member of any of the several Muslim peoples of southern Philippines. So Filipinos are actually Moros, not Filipinos. Moros. Morocco, Africa. Morocco's Africa. Definition of Moorish from the Barnhart Dictionary of Etymology. Moorish, adjective, or of pertaining to the Moors. 2. In the style of the Moors, as architecture, decoration, etc. Late Middle English, Moris. See Moor and Ish. Now here's where it becomes very, very important. Now remember, blackamoor is any dark-skinned person, right? Definition of American from Noah Webster's 1828 American Dictionary on the English Language. American, noun, a native of America, originally applied to the aboriginals or copper-colored, now we know colored means fake, so it's copper-toned, We have a skin tone, not a skin color. Copper-toned races. Now, we already know race means to shoot out. We all shout out from the same family, but I have to break it down because they connotatively have colored in race, right? There's only one race and it's human. Hue, man, dark skin. So again, an American is a native of America, originally, etymology, originally applied to the aboriginals or copper-toned people found here by Europeans. So that means Europeans, pale-skinned people, aren't Americans. Only the copper-toned people, the various copper-toned people. You see why you'll hear those denationalized Moors who think that they're black. They'll say, oh, so-called Puerto-Ricans are black, Haitians are black, and you see why the Haitians and other people get mad and say, I'm not black, because they're not black, they're Moorish. And again, the definition of black from Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary, black means pale. Black, adjective, every single language, this is the etymology in the brackets. It'll tell you which language it's derived from or what language it's spelled in, right? So in the Saxon language, it's spelled like that. In the German language, it's spelled like this. But bleach and black is black in the English language. It's the same word. The definitions don't change. The spelling may change. Definitions do not change. It's the true, literal definition of the word. That is the etymology. In linguistics, the study of how words change is morphology. Morph meaning to change form, to change shape, plus ology, the suffix ology, meaning branch of knowledge, science, to study or the study of. So morphology is the study of how things change shape or form. The process in which words change is transliteration via transmutation or permutation. Both of those just means changing of the letters, either in the class or in the row. You would have to go into gutturals and all that kind of stuff. The words Amexem, Moor, American, Al-Moroccan, Olmec, Mahdi, Amir, Mexican, Maya, Mali, Ama, the Cherokee word meaning water, Amu Akush, the Berber word for Morocco, Mauritania, an ancient name for Morocco / North Africa, Morocco, Mohawk, Muskegee, Tamari, one of the ancient names of Egypt, Mohegan, Sagamore, an American chief, Sheikh Shakum, which is the word sage plus more, share the same root word mu, meaning water. By no coincidence, Moors are known as a sea, water, fretting people. Morocco is America, as the word America is a transliterated version of Al, descendants of Moroccan. So we are the descendants of the Moors. Vowels are interchangeable. And here we have a little breakdown of Al-Moroccan. You see, you keep that vowel right there. You drop the L, changing up the letters. Keep the M. Vowels are interchangeable. The O changes to an E. Keep the R. Vowels are interchangeable again. The O changes to an I. Keep the C. Drop the second C. Keep the A. Keep the N. So the Al-Moroccans, the Moors who are dark-skinned, are the Americans, the various copper-toned people. Copper is a dark color. The purpose of branding us Negro, Black, Colored, Spanish, Indian, and West Indian was to denationalize us, thus making us in law non-descendible, thus unable to inherit our vast estate, as we are the true possessors of the Moroccan Empire. The Moroccan Empire has been systematically divided and is now administered by Christian European powers. One of the last meetings that took place for the division of the Moroccan Empire took place during the Berlin Conference in 1884 to 1885. Now, 1886, our prophet was born. Isn't that interesting? The denationalization process also disconnects us from our vast, illustrious history and places us in a wardship status, providing room for the Europeans to escheat our estate. The following is an attempt to reconnect you back to that estate. With his divine and eternal words, Noble Ali stated, "Come all ye Asiatics of America and hear the truth about your nationality and birthrights, because you are not Negroes. Learn of your forefathers' ancient and divine creed, that you may learn to love instead of hate. We are trying to uplift fallen humanity. Come and link yourselves with the families of nations. We honor all true and divine prophets. If you have race pride and love your race, join the Moorish Science Temple of America and become part of this divine movement. Then you will have power to redeem your race, because you will know who you are and who your forefathers were. Because where there is unity, there is strength. Together we stand, divided we fall. Come, good people, because I, the prophet, sent to redeem this nation from mental slavery which you have now, need every one of you who think that your condition can be better. This is a field open to strong men and women to uplift the nation and take their place in the affairs of men. If the Europeans and other nations are helping me, why not you? It is your problem. The Negro problem is being solved only as it can, and that is by the Moorish National Divine Movement. If you have a nation, you must have a free national name in order to be recognized by this nation as an American citizen. This is what was meant when it said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things would be added unto you. That is from Prophet Drali Speaks to the Nations. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Now, does that sound familiar? Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of every government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issues and names formed by their forefathers. Now, this is where you hear the Moors always bring up the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the United States and the Moroccan Empire, because since we are descendants of those Moors, that's the trust formed by our forefathers. Now honor that, because you're on our land. The word Negro deludes in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word colored deludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. Remember, colored is an appearance, so it's painted, it's varnished, it's dyed. It's not true. It's not truth. It's a simulacrum as distinguished from that which is real. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon this earth. Not in a cloud, this earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizens of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by this said government in which they live. Now, that was from a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. That was an excerpt from that. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact they honored not the creed and principles of their forefathers. That is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father. They strayed after the gods of Europe, whom they knew nothing. Interestingly enough, our prophet referred to us as Asiatics. He also tells us that we are not Negro, black, and colored. It is very important at this time for all Moors to know that they are not Indians, as in Native American Indians. Indians are classified by the United States Census Bureau as colored. The brands Indian, Black, Colored, Spanish, Latin American, etc. have been placed on the people of a Mexican for purposes of denationalization. This act was purposely done to us in order to cause a contingency within the course of descent, thus severing the mental connection between us and our ancestors, thus a disconnect from the land that was to be handed down to us by our ancestors. This mental disconnect from our ancestors and land, estate, which is the cause, provides mandate for Europeans to convert and escheat our lands / estate. That's the effect. So since we were disconnected from our ancestors, that cause leads to the effect of someone has to administrate that. That's what the Europeans have been doing. Salud. These acts of conversion and escheating have been decreed to them via their papal bulls, namely the Encyclica Divina, issued by Pope Alexander the Sixth, May 4th, 1493. It is their land-stealing doctrine of discovery and issuance to force Christianity on the Aboriginal Moors of America. The word escheat is a legal term and is defined as the following. Escheat, in feudal law, escheat is an obstruction of the course of descent and consequent determination of the tenure by some unforeseen contingency, in which case the land naturally results back by a kind of reversion to the original grantor or lord of the fee. It is the casual descent in the nature of forfeiture of lands and tenements. It's a forfeiture of lands to a lord, either on failure to issue of the tenant dying seized or an account of a felony of such tenant. In American law, escheat signifies a reversion of property to the state in consequence of a want. Remember, the word want etymologically means lack. So a lack of an individual competent to inherit. So if we say we're Negro, Black, colored, that's not what our ancestors were called. Clearly we're incompetent. Clearly we can't inherit what belongs to us. Again, escheating is a forfeiture of our lands because of a lack of an individual competent enough to inherit it. Drelly was that competent Moor who restored it back to us and started teaching us, hey, you know we have an estate. You know if all of this is yours, you have to be mentally prepared to take care of it. First, you have to know it's yours. The word conversion is also a legal term and is defined as the following. Conversion, the exchange of property from real to personal or from personal to real, which takes place under some circumstances in the consideration of the law, such as to give effect to the directions in a will or settlement, or to stipulations in a contract, although no such change has actually taken place. So conversion is colored. It's fake. No such change has actually taken place. In connection to our noble prophet, Drew Ali, and the European acts of conversion on our lands, they, Europeans, often refer to us as Indians. On their official documents, they will always make it a point to either place the word Indian in quotation marks to signify the fact that they know we are not Indians, or mention that we were mistakenly called Indian. Now here's an excerpt from the government of Rhode Island's website, Civics and Education. Remember, law, civics, and history, education go together. See, Rhode Island history. And then it goes into who were the first people here. Now, if we just scroll down, you can read that on your own. Feel free to pause it and read it. Feel free to read all this. And they renamed the Quidneck to Rhode Island, the island, their so-called Newport, right? So the indigenous people mistakenly named Indians, remember some quotations, and this is from their official website. They clearly Clearly, this is obvious that they know we're not Indians. See what I'm saying? So if on the Secretary of the Corporate State of Rhode Island's official website, they informally, openly admit that Europeans know we're not Indians, then why do our people keep referring to us as such? And this is what Noble Drew Ali said. Be careful, Moors. Some of your own wearing turbans and fezzes will try to put you back into slavery. I smell sellouts, Uncle Toms, and what Noble Drew Ali told us to call them, dirty Moors. In another book, Album of Rhode Island History, 1638 to 1986, by Patrick T. Conley, under the section Indians and Explorers, pre-1636. Now, we already know that Roger Williams established Providence Colony in 1636. Chapter 1. The author, like our prophet, Noble Drew Ali, refers to us as Asiatics. Now, this is from the book. Primitive people of Asiatic origin, mistakenly named Indians, again, mistakenly in quotations, Indians, were the first inhabitants of present-day Rhode Island. Now, we know it's not Rhode Island. We know it's Narragansett territory. We know that. But that's part of the acts of conversion and the escheating. Yet again, standing as more proof to the fact that the so-called blacks and the so-called Indians are the same people, divided in the mind only due to the Willie Lynch Manual of Operations that extends into education, media, books, etc. The Willie Lynch Manual and connection of the so-called blacks and Indians is expounded upon in my other book, Are You Confused About Law? So if you want more details on that, you can purchase that book. It was entirely necessary and pivotal for the European conquistadors to brand us Indian and black, as it provided mandate for them to steal our lands. I know this sounds repetitive, but this needs to be drilled in our minds. Us taking on the brands Negro, black, and colored, to which Indian is listed under the term colored within the United States Census Bureau, removed us from the human family. Didn't Noble Drew Ali said there's no Negro, colored, black attached to the human species, human race, human family, thus reducing the universal karma of violating the divine law and killing a human being, and other mistreatments perpetrated against us by our colonial oppressors. So if we keep saying, hey, I'm a colored person, you don't have to recognize me in law, then divine law don't apply to you either. Because law governs all events. As stated by our prophet, Noble Drew Ali, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family. Thus, when a black, colored, or Negro man, in quotation because they're not real, is killed, no violation of divine law has occurred. It is important to know that the phrase colored person has no standing at law. See Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. The word color, as defined by the aforementioned Law Dictionary, means a fake, a fraud, an artificial person as distinguished from a natural person, i.e. a human being. It is of utmost importance for all humans to know that the human race / human species is identified by national origin, i.e. nationality. Evidence of the importance of branding us can be found in many books. For example, The Culture of Native North Americans, edited by Christian F. Feast. When in 1492, Columbus mistook the people of the Antilles for natives of India, mistook us for natives of India. He could not have guessed how far-reaching the consequences, remember cause and effect, of his error would be. And this is my annotation, hinting towards the massive denationalization of Moors, now branded Negro, black, colored, Indian, Spanish, Latino, etc. More than 500 years later, the peoples of America are still designated Indians, in quotation marks, as if they were a more or less homogeneous population. Nothing can be further from the truth. This is a European saying this about us. That was on page 10. He continues. He says, the Indians, in quotation marks again, the Indians are not a people inhabiting the wild expanses of the American continent. They're not people of the American continent. Their place of origin and residence lies in the realm of the imagination of Europeans. With their confusing diversity and contradictions. And this is my annotation. In regard to the Europeans attempting to form a school of thought revolving around the Moors, branded Indians being savage, uncivilized, etc. Because they call us uncivilized, yet we're conducting treaties. How are we dealing with civics? You know, contracts, treaties, or contracts that's dealing with civics. How are we uncivilized and signing treaties? You see, it lies in the realm of the imagination. It's a fraud. He continues, the Indians, again in quotations, quickly became the embodiment of the other, providing a counterexample of what was good and what was bad in the observer's culture to those believing in progress. The Indians represent the savage, living witness to a European past believed long overcome. So the whole story of the Indians was to make us seem like we're bad people. So it seems like the Europeans did something good when they came here and started killing us, stealing our stuff. So it's only in the imagination. This is a European admitting this. So why do we still have dark-skinned people talking about we're Indians? This is my annotation. The idea of the Indians being savage was very crucial for European conquest and their social engineered mind control agenda. Branding the Moors savage and Indian gives cause, remember cause and effect, for the effect of murder, land theft, forced assimilation, and genocide, i.e. birthright theft. Then Ali said he wants us to know about our nationality and birthrights. They're stealing our land. Continuing, when appropriating American lands, the Spaniards, Europeans, Spanish Inquisition, Isabel and Ferdinand, we got to keep this into context. We got to know world history. Claimed the right of conquest justified by the original inhabitants' refusal to convert voluntarily to Christianity. They used Christianity as a means, as a justification to do horrible things. And that, again, can be found in their Antiquaria Divina of 1493. The missionaries' innocent contribution to cultural genocide lay primarily in the fact that their religious convictions were so closely linked to their own cultural values. Christianity and civilization were almost inseparable concepts. And conversations were not only about introducing a new faith, but also about the use of the adoption of European forms of political organization, clothing, living, and even the exception of new habits and hygiene. Because you got to remember, when we went into Al-Andalus, which we call Spain today, Europeans weren't bathing. We taught them how to bathe. Now you got to go think when Nas, the rapper, said the problem is we started thinking like the colonist till Noble Drew Ali started dropping that consciousness. And again, Drew Ali said, we went off after the idol gods of Europe. Europeans weren't taking showers. You know, now they got some of our people dressing like them. You know, our culture is no clothes. Our skin touches the sun. You see what I'm saying? So as you're reading this, think about what's going on around you right now. And you have to, you know, compare it, reflect it back to history. So you have to read other books too. The colonial administration of North America had little interest in the education of indigenous people. Our people always complain about how miseducated we are. And the plans of missionaries to turn children into Christians. Do your research on, quote, the First Great Awakening, unquote, of 1740. Here are some of your history, Moors. Now this is from Vanished Civilizations, The Hidden Secrets of the Lost Cities and Forgotten People, published by the Reader's Digest, Association Limited, London, New York, Sydney, and Montreal. So this is the city of Mari. Look at that, more right there, right in your face. This is what the beautiful city looked like. This is what our ancestors did. So when you call yourself black, you don't connect to this. Because these people aren't black. They're Moors. The ancient city of Mari, circa, so around 2500 BC. We did this BC. A center for trade for the ancient Moors, linking us with Asia Major, i.e. Hindustan, India, and China, etc. The name of Mari had already cropped up in the records of the great Mesopotamian civilization of Sumer, ancient Sumer. Discoveries by earlier archaeologists. Sumer was centered on the delta of the Tigris and Euphrates River, where great cities such as Uruk, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, Nippur, Eridu, and flourished some 3,000 years before the birth of Christ. I put his real name, Yeshua ben Yosef. Its people invented writing. Our ancestors invented writing. Why are you calling yourself black? In an early text, now known as the King's List, they named Mari as one of the dozen or so city-states struggling for supremacy between about 3,000 and 2,300 BC. That's on page 40. Here's another one of your ancient cities, Carthage. Remember the ancient Carthage wars between us and the Europeans. You got to know world history, and I mentioned this in my other book, Are You Confused About Law? Look at this beautifulness. Look how beautiful this is. Look at that. Our ancestors did that. No black people, Moors. This is part of the Moroccan Empire. This is near Al-Andalus, near Italy, near Spain. Carthage was founded by the Phoenicians. Phoenicians are ancient Canaanites, Hittites. Right? Ancient inhabitants of modern Syria and Lebanese coast of the eastern Mediterranean. The Phoenicians were related to the Jews, or the Ibri, of the Old Testament, sharing their Semitic languages and cultural heritage. The Bible refers to them as Canaanites. This is what Drew Ali was talking about, ancient Canaanites. This is our people. They set up new trading bases and established regular communications with outposts as far as the Atlantic coast. This is BC time. And it talks about Morocco and Cadiz in Spain. An area especially valued for its precious ores. Carthage was founded in the route to these treasures. Now, Carthage is west of Mari. Mari is near, like the holy city, like Jerusalem and stuff like that. Mari is over there, over what they call the Middle East. Mm-hmm. Carthage is north, what they're calling Africa today, Al-Kibalan, North Africa, around there. It's like to the west of Egypt. The Carthaginians were valiant seamen. Remember, we're seafaring people. One great Carthaginian sea voyage has been recorded in the 5th century BC. A man named Hanno is said to have traveled down the west coast of Africa and reaching as far as perhaps modern-day Ivory Coast. This threat in itself can eliminate the pseudo-history of the Portuguese being the founders of the island that they branded Cape Verde. This island that is now called Cape Verde was in fact part of the Moorish, which is the Ottoman, which is the Moroccan, which is the Phoenician, which is the Canaanite Empire. Therefore, Cape Verdeans are in fact Moors, not blacks, nor Cape Verdeans. Now, you often hear a lot of our people, when they talk about Cape Verdeans, they say, oh, you're black people. But they need to realize that they're not black people themselves. Yes, they come from us, but we need to realize that we're Moors. They're descendants of Moors, not blacks. Again, this ancient person traveled to the Ivory Coast. Clearly we were going to the island that they call Cape Verde right now. Around the time the Portuguese branded the isle Cape Verde, the two kingdoms of Aragon and Castile were merging to institute the Spanish Inquisition to combat the Moorish Emirate after a series of transitions of power between the Umayyad Caliphate and the Almohad and the Almoravids Moors. So it was a transition of power between us. We were handing it over to other Moors. So during that transition, Europeans said, hey, since they're taking our people as servants and our women as concubines, remember the Barbary slave trade that we talked about in the Golden Age of the Moors by Ivan van Sertima? They merged kingdoms to combat us. You see, this is why you must know world history. Eventually, the conjoined pale-skinned black Christian powers expelled them, Moors, from Moorish Spain, called Al-Andalus, i.e. that would be their acts of conversion. Again, we civilized Spain, We went into Spain 711 AD, initiated the Renaissance from the 10th to the 17th century, meaning we educated them, and then they kicked us out. The Aztecs, some people refer to them as Mexico. Look how beautiful this is. This is our people. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is.
They use the same grid system too.
Yep, same. Yeah, you can see that the architecture is the same. Same as the Moorish, same as Carthage, same. Now watch how interesting this gets. A city surrounded by water. When the Spanish conquistadors, remember Spanish Inquisition, Isabella Ferdinand, Castile Aragon, to fight the Moors, arrived in the Valley of Mexico in 1519. Remember, Christopher Columbus, 1492, into Terra Divina, 1493, to force Christianity on us. What are they doing here? They discovered an immense lake, bustling with boats. In the center, on an island, stood a dazzling white city, the glorious capital of the Aztec Empire. The winds that blew across the Gulf of Mexico to Cuba in the early years of the 16th century carried rumors that set men's blood racing. Talk about our stuff. Tales of vast cities, of pyramids bigger than those of Egypt, and of staggering hoards of gold, silver, and precious stones. On November 8th, Cortez, the European Spanish Inquisitioner, and his party scrambled down the slopes of the mountain that enclosed Lake Texcoco. They were confronted by the incredible sight. Sprawled across the islands in the lake and on the banks beyond were numerous towns and villages in the middle of the lake. Severed by crossing ways rose a city as big as ancient Rome and as beautiful as Venice. Now this part is from the book When Rocks Cry Out by Horace Butler. The censor or interpreter, talking about the Aztecs again, of the work failed to continue using Moorish in dark complexion to describe the Mexicans, choosing in this instance to use the adjective that was certain and unquestionable black. That's denationalization. You stop referring to the Mexicans as Moors and dark-skinned people and you call them black. You just denationalize them. You strip them of their ancient culture, their heritage. Mm-hmm. Just as the librarian had cautioned, the government's account of the Aztecs, written by Cortez himself, seemed washed or censored. The African presence was effectively hidden, even while descriptions exposed the people's braided hair. Talk about Aztecs, Moorish clothing, Aztecs, and their mosques. Aztecs, African police system, and African ornamentation. Spanish writers who saw the Aztecs and who knew the Moors had revealed that the Aztecs even wore the same clothing used by the Africans called Moors. So when you just said that architecture was the same, we are the same people. That's why the architecture was the same. That's why these copper-toned people called the Aztecs braided their hairs just like the Moors. Just like so-called black people braid their hair today. That's Moorish culture, not black culture. Al-Andalus, Moorish Spain. Remember, Moors, this is your connection. I just reconnected you back. Ancient Sumer, Carthage. Now, I'm about to do Spain. And ancient Central Mexim. The Aztecs are Moors. Aztecs are the descendants of the Olmecs. So that means you connect back to them too. Now, this is from Golden Age of the Moor by Ivan van Sertima. At the pinnacle of the Umayyad dynasty, the great city of Cordoba possessed 200,000 residences, 600 mosques. Now, back in the day, mosques used to be universities, church, well, the concept of church, right? A meeting place, governmental office where you handle your affairs, court, public records. That's what the mosques was. Here's your county. That's what that building was. Not just a place where you bow and, you know what I mean? That's what a mosque was. That's why there's so much of them. And 900 public baths that were patronized by all social classes. No, only the poor go here. Only the rich go here. Everyone used the same thing. Among his many accomplishments, Hakam II added 27 schools for the free instruction of poor people. This is why Drew Ali said, go back to the ancient mindset of your foremothers and forefathers. Teach everybody. In the 10th century, Moorish Cordoba was very much like a modern city. Its streets were well paved and there were raised sidewalks for pedestrians. Moors did this. At night, one could walk for miles by the lights of lamps, flanked by uninterrupted extent of buildings. This was hundreds of years before there was a paved street in Paris, France, or a street lamp in London, England. Moors did this. Made Spain what it is before, how many years did it say? Hundreds of years before there was even paved streets in France. Dark-skinned Asiatic Moors brought this, civilized them. Europeans I'm talking about when I say that. There were 900 public baths, besides a large number of private ones too. At a time when the rest of Europe considered bathing as extremely sinful and to avoid it as much as possible. So while we were showing the Europeans up in Spain, this is how you take care of your flesh, your skin. Other people, they were living in barns. They said bathing that's bad. Our ancestors said, no, this is how you take care of yourself. Remember, chapter 3, unity of life, circle 7 Quran, all things are connected by cords. So if one human being is sick, we're all sick. So we went in, this is how you need to take care of yourself. You're not doing good, you need to take care of yourself. We're the mothers and fathers of civilization. Isn't that what Riley said? Now here's an excerpt from this website talking about Moorish Cordoba again. Cordoba domination of Moorish Spain began 30 years after its conquest in 756. When the city was placed under the control of Abd al-Rahman I, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, excuse me, the sole survivor of the Umayyad dynasty, which had been bloodily expelled from the Eastern Caliphate of Damascus. He proved a firm but moderate ruler and a remarkable military campaigner, establishing control over all but the north of Spain and proclaiming himself Emir, a title meaning both king and son of the Caliph. In 929, with Muslim Spain and part of North Africa firmly under his control, Abd al-Rahman III adopted the title of Caliph. It was a supremely confident move and was reflected in the growing splendor of Cordoba, which had become the largest, most prosperous city in Europe, outshining Byzantium, am I saying that right? And Baghdad, the new capital of the Eastern Caliphate. In science, culture, and scholarship, at the turn of the 10th century, Moorish sources boast of the city's 27 schools, 50 hospitals, 900 public baths, 60,300 mansions, 80,455 shops, 213,077 houses. And these are the people, look at their skin tone. These are the people that made Spain what it is. Look at their skin tone. Look at their facial features. This guy right here has a fez. This person right here has a turban. Now, if you look at what they try to portray so-called Indians as, you'll see they rarely have any clothes. If you look, you can see his bare skin. This is just a garb. He's naked under this. But they try to say we're savages when we look like that. But this is our culture. You see? Al-Andalus. This is the Alhambra. This is what these people look like. And you see the Masons, they always have that, they block, because that's blocking that lower self. This is more science we're dealing with. That lower self. So this is the Alhambra. This is by the artist, 1854 to 1932. There are 3 distinct groups of buildings on the Alhambra Hill. The Royal Palace, or the Nasrid Palace. The palace gardens of the general life in the Al-Khazaba. The last, the fortress of the 11th century Ziridian rulers, was all that existed when the Nasrid ruler Ibn al-Hamar made Granada his capital. But first, its reddish walls, the hilltop, had already taken its name. This is what the Alhambra. Literally the red fort or the red house. Alhambra is the red house. Right? Now you can read on your own. I'm gonna skip this. This is just show you this is the red house. This is what the Moors did. You see. After Alhambra, the Alhambra after the Moors, right? I'm starting down here. Following their conquest of the city in 1492, Fernando and Isabella lived for a while in the Alhambra. They restored some rooms and converted the mosques, but left the place structure unaltered. So they changed it from a mosque to church to symbolize the transition. But they kept everything that we established. This is what they do everywhere they go.
Yeah.
They keep everything we have. They just convert it and say, "Oh yeah, we did this."
Mm-hmm.
See. Now you can pause this and read the rest. Now let's Granada. This is what the people of Granada looked like. Look how dark their skin is. These are Moors, not black people. Moors. Turbans, dressed in jewels, red shoes, red bottoms. This man is not a slave, he's a guard. Just because he doesn't have a shirt on, like these guys, doesn't mean he's in a lesser status. Turbans, white turban, white means purity. See, white means purity. Has nothing to do with skin tone. Granada's glory was always precarious. It was established as an independent kingdom in 1238 by Ibn al-Hamar. Remember this guy? A prince of the Arab Nasrid tribe. It had been driven south from Zaragoza. He proved a just and capable ruler, but all over Spain the Christian kingdoms were in the ascendant. The Moors of Granada survived only through paying tribute and allegiance to Fernando III of Castile. Remember, this is around a time where they've instituted the first Crusades, the Inquisition, around the 10th century. So we've been battling at this point between the Moors and the Europeans, constant battling, constant fighting. Whom they were forced to assist in the conquest of Muslim Seville. So this is where you get the conversos and the Moriscos, those who converted to Christianity to help the Europeans, help the Christians, fighting against themselves. And by the time of his death in 1275, it was the only surviving kingdom, Granada. It had, however, consolidated its territory and, stipulated by refugees, developed a flourishing commerce industry and culture. So even while it was getting overran, still maintaining its integrity. Because that's what we do, we survive. By a series of shrewd maneuvers, Granada maintained its autonomy for 2.5 centuries, its rulers turning for protection, in turn as it suited them, to the Christian kings of Aragon and Castile, and the Meridian Muslims of Morocco. The city-state enjoyed a particularly confident and prosperous period under Yusuf I, 1334 to 54, and Muhammad V, 1354 to 91. The sultans responsible for much of the existing Alhambra Palace. But by the mid-15th century, remember 1492, a pattern of coups, internal overthrow, and internal strife became established, and a rapid succession of rulers did little to stem Christian inroads. So remember, even when you're doing history here in America, even with the coup d'etat 1861, if you read any of the so-called Indian history, it was always an internal overthrow. They used the Moriscos and the Morenos, the conversos, to defeat us, meaning they converted Moors to Christians, infiltrated, and then we defeated ourselves. Nothing has changed. In 1479, the kingdoms of Aragon and Castile were united by the marriage of Fernando and Isabella. Remember, that's when they named Cape Verde. Cape Verde, it's not Cape Verde. And within 10 years, they had conquered Ronda, Malaga, and Almeria. The city of Granada now stood completely alone, tragically occupied in a civil war between supporters of the Sultan's two favorite wives. Now you can continue reading that on your own from here. All right. The crash of Moorish power in the middle of the 13th century, although this lingered on in enclaves like Granada until 1492, was to make a tremendous difference. It is not an accident that the year Columbus sailed was the same year the African generals Moors and Granada surrendered to Ferdinand and Isabella. See that connection? Now that we have a brief overview of our connection to North Africa, Spain, Central America, let's go into some of the prophecies of Noble Drew Ali. Now you can get this book, Oral Statement and Prophecies of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, from rvbaypublications.com. And they're in order, so I just took exactly the numbers and I kept them as such. Children, you are home. The European is 3,000 miles away from home, and he is going to take on some water. Remember, these pale-skinned people aren't the Americans, they're Europeans. If you got people in the South, get them out, because that is where destruction is going to start. For the various lynchings and murders that were committed in the South, the South is going to have to pay, and pay off in blood. Every word that I speak is spirit, and you Moors had better heed. This is Drew Ali speaking. If the Europeans be just, they would have an Asiatic vice president. And if they had an Asiatic president, they would have a European vice president. Now, Barack Hussein Obama, he's Asiatic, dark skin, he's Kenyan. And his vice president, European. What did Drew Ali just say? You see? When the Europeans go back to Europe, the climate will go back to what it used to be. Before the Europeans came here, the bananas were large and the grapes were 4 in hand. The Europeans will not be able to remove all the wealth from the land. After he goes back to Europe, mountains of gold will be revealed to the Moors. Children, you are just plain rich. The Europeans are going to have to pay our people off for the work that they did in slavery, and pay off in compounded interest. Chicago, Illinois is going to be your new Mecca. Don't worry about how you're going to be saved. It will be done in a conflict that cannot be told in words. He also said, I brought you something you can shout about. That history that I was reading to you, that's something I was shouting about as I was reading it. When I first found that information, I was so happy, so proud of my lineage, my bloodline, my pedigree, my ancestors did this. So happy. There was going to be an earthquake that will split up the United States in two. Moors, be yourselves. Moors, study yourselves. Children, your hair is not kinky. It is woolly like your brother Jesus. You can find that in the book of Revelations. Hair like lamb's wool, skin like burnished brass. Allah alone guides the destiny of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It doesn't make any difference which way things look like they are going. It's all going to end up in the Asiatics' hands. We're the true possessors of this. It belongs to us. It will come back to us. One day, the United States will not be able to do any business unless they do it through the Asiatics. Now, I was watching the news the other day. I don't normally do this, but I was going upstairs and someone in my family was watching TV, and I seen CVS is going out of business. Imagine that. You are from Missouri. I have got to show you. The Moors were living up and down the Mississippi River before the European man came here. Now, since this is just an excerpt from my book, Moorish Dominions, I kept that part out. So if you would like to see that, I talk about the Mississippi Mound Builders and have pictures from certain books. If you would like the book, feel free to email me asking about the Moorish Dominion book at riseofthemoors@gmail.com. Now this is from Circle 7, Chapter 45, the divine origin of the Asiatic nations. Now as I'm reading this, keep in mind the Pangea. Let me just go back to that real fast. I'll go back to that map. As I'm reading this, keep in mind this map right here. Keep this in mind as I'm reading this. Keep it in mind. The divine origin of the Asiatic nations. The falling sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America need to learn to love instead of hate, and to know of their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans, etc. The key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations. The Moorish, or the Moorish, who were ancient Moabites and founders of the holy city of Mecca. The Egyptians, who were the Hammatites, and of a direct descendant of Mizraim, the Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese and Chinese. The Hindus of India, the descendants of the Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites of the land of Canaan. The Asiatic nations of North, South, and Central America. The Moorish Americans and Mexicans of North America. Brazilians, Argentinians, and Chileans in South America. Colombians, Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador and Central America, etc. All of these are Muslims. The Turks are the true descendants of Hagar, who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed of Mecca. Beginning from Muhammad I, the founding of the uniting of Islam by the command of the great universal God, Allah. Keep that in mind. You have to keep all of this in mind as we're discussing this. America is Africa. Jurali tells us that Amexem is the true and divine name of Africa. If one is to take the prefix of Amexem and the suffix of Africa, you get the word America. Now the following definition of Moor is from etymononline.com. Here's the link. Moor, noun, North African. Now remember, keep this map in mind. North African. Berber. From Old French, Moor. From medieval Latin, Moros. From Latin, Moros. Inhabitant of Mauritania, Northwest Africa. A region now corresponding to northern Algeria and Morocco. From Greek, Moros. And they talk about how we're black. We know we're not black. Being a dark people in relation to Europeans. Then they try to say we're synonymous with Negro, so therefore Negroes are really Moors. They call us Muslims. Persians, Arabs, Phoenicians, Carthaginians. All of these are Moors. Especially those in India. So Hindustan, they're Moors. Wow, imagine that. Remember, their dominion and habitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa across the Great Atlantis, even onto the present North, South, and Central America, also Mexico, and the Atlantis before the Great Earthquake. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about before the Great Earthquake. This is how far our bloodline goes. Look at that. Now, this is an excerpt from right here, from the Geology of Florida by Albert C. Hind, College of Marine Science University of South Florida. They're talking about this, Pangea. The reconstruction of the megacontinent Pangea about 250 million years ago. This is modern stuff. Jurali knew this in 1913. He was an Egyptian adept student, right? Note that Florida lies between South America and Africa. Let me just scroll up so you can see that. Florida, between South America and Africa. Look how close that is. Remember, before the Atlantic became an ocean, it was a river. And let me just point this out here. You'll see a lot of our people say we're Hebrew Israelites. The word Hebrew It's really Ibri, and it means those who cross the river. Didn't Noble Drew Ali say we crossed the river before the great earthquake? See that? So we are the Ibri, because Ibri means to cross over, something we did. It's not who we are, something we did. It's a verb, not a noun. See that? That would be the Atlantic River before it was the ocean, and that's Florida. And this is what you call Africa today, and this would be Northwest Africa, or Northwest of Mexico. So again, Florida lies between South America and Africa, well inland from the oceanic influence. It's 250 million years ago. By this time, Florida basement rocks had migrated via plate tectonic processes approximately 10,000 kilometers to the north across the equator. Rocks from both of these continents underlying northern Florida, South Georgia, and southeast South Carolina. So these plates, part of Africa and South America, are still connected to our eastern seaboard. Still, to this very day. And then it goes into detail from this guy from this university, right? The basement rocks underlying Florida originally extended across South America and Northwest Africa, forming one continental landmass. So this guy is backing up what Noble Drew Ali said. This is why we call him a prophet. You see? Over millions of years, the megacontinent Pangaea was assembled, and the Yucatan, Florida, Bahamas basement rocks were located approximately 10,000 kilometers to the north in the central portion of the megacontinent, far from any ocean. And you can just go to that link that I had posted. Approximately 250 million years ago, North America and most of the rest of the continental mass, including Africa and South America, began to pull apart. And by 180 million years ago, the early North Atlantic Ocean began to form. So didn't Drew Ali said we crossed before the Atlantic? So we're talking about we've been here for 250 million years. Wow. Isn't that incredible?
It is.
Feel free to read this. Feel free to pause it and read the rest. I'm going to continue right here. A piece of Northwest Africa that remained attached to North America during early rifting formed the northern portion of Florida, South Georgia, and southeastern South Carolina. So Georgia, Florida, and Carolina is Africa. Therefore, North America is Africa. And again, the source is from The Geology of Florida by Albert C. Hine, College of Marine Science, University of Florida. Now, with all of that in mind, think to yourself, since I'm a Moor, and clearly my people have been here for at least 250 million years, according to this European guy, and my prophet said we've been here since before the dividing of the land, why am I paying a foreigner European rent to live on my own land? Why am I paying a foreigner for heat, gas, water, electricity, and other natural resources that are derived from my own homeland? Now, then you would have to think about this. Do you see why Michelle Obama went to the Alhambra while Obama, the Asiatic president, remember Drew Ali prophesied this, revealed that the American Constitution is derived from Muslim law? And when they returned from Egypt, when I say he, I'm talking about Barack Obama, signed the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People when the Bush administration wouldn't. So since we've been here 250 million years, we're indigenous people. That means we have the right to our land and resources back. And here's a picture of Michelle Obama at the Alhambra, the Red House. Remember earlier I showed you what those brown-skinned people look like. Alhambra, the Red House, last stronghold of the Moors. Before Isabella and Ferdinand took charge. That's Michelle Obama right there. Michelle Obama in red at center during her visit to the Alhambra Palace in Granada, Spain. On Thursday, source, New York Times by Peter Barker and Raphael Minder, August 6, 2010. It is important to mention at this time the important role of our ancestors in the spread of Islam in Africa. Often when pseudo-scholars, pseudo means fake or phony, make reference to Moors forcing, quote, blacks, there is no such thing as a black person, into servitude using Islam, they always fail to mention that the spread of Islam was in fact done to counter the spread of Christianity and to take back portions of Africa from European Christian administration. It was a political move, not to enslave our people. Christianity and the science of Islam, or Islamic mysticism / Kemetic / Egyptian mysticism, have always been political sciences or politics. Christianity and Islam, from a historical aspect, must not be taken in a belief mentality, meaning they were not fighting over whose God was better, but which political science, Christianity or Islam, would be the administrating power governing civilization. Remember, Drali said, go back to the ancient mindset of your ancient mothers and fathers. And here's an excerpt from Stolen Legacy, Greek Philosophy is Stolen Egyptian Philosophy by George G.M. James. It is also important to point out that the philosophy was not stolen. The Europeans were taught Kemetic philosophy, placed their own names, cultures, and symbolisms on it for their own earthly salvation for their people. Now see chapter 46 of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple of America, the beginning of Christianity prepared by Noble Drali, because he mentions that Christianity was created by the Romans for their earthly salvation. Also, you can look at my other book, Are You Confused About Law? The Historical Facts, Truth, and Events, starting at page 20 to page 21. I go into the Nicene Creed of 325 AD, where Constantine, the Roman emperor, created the Nicene Creed, which is the official name of Christianity, 325 AD, so after so-called Jesus Christ, whose really name is Yeshua ben Yosef, after he died. So clearly he wasn't a Christian. But still, it was done for their earthly salvation. So I referenced that because Drali already told us this. So this is from the book, Stolen Legacy, George G.M. James. The earliest theory of salvation is the Egyptian theory. The Egyptian mystery system had its most important object and the deification of man. See chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Quran. And taught that the soul of man, if liberated from his bodily fetters, see chapter 3 of the Circle 7 Quran, could enable him to become godlike and see the gods in this life and attain the beatific vision and hold communion with the immortals. See chapter 38 of the Circle 7 Quran. Remember, Drali was the Egyptian adept student. Plotinus defines the experience as the liberation of the mind from its finite consciousness. When it becomes one and is identified with the infinite, remember, read chapter 1, Circle 7. This liberation was not only of the soul from bodily impediments, but also from the wheel, that's a typo, of reincarnation or rebirth. And that's the zodiac wheel. It involved a process of disciplines of purification, both for the body and the soul. Again, see chapter 1 of the Circle 7. How man debased himself from Allah, started following carnal customs, but we will regain our lost estate. Since the mystery systems offered the salvation of the soul, it placed great emphasis upon its immortality. Didn't Drali say spirit man can't die? Man's the thought of Allah. All thoughts of Allah are infinite. Remember, Drali was the Egyptian adept student. The Egyptian mystery systems, like the modern universities, was the center of organized culture, and candidates entered it as the leading source of ancient culture. The Egyptians had 3 grades of students. 1, the mortals, i.e. probationary students who were being instructed but who had not yet experienced the inner vision. 2, the intelligences, i.e. those who had attained the inner vision and had received minds or nous. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And 3, the creators or sons of light. And you'll see, if you read chapter 2 and chapter 7 of the Circle 7 Quran, Drali mentions the son of light, who had become identified with or united with the light, i.e. true spiritual consciousness. And that's page 7 of the book, And again, see chapter 2 and chapter 7 of Circle 7 Quran. You'll see the connection between what George M. James is saying about Egyptian mystery systems and what Drew Ali said. Drew Ali said it first. Here's my annotation. The 3 degrees of the Egyptian mystery systems are universal in character. The Masons have the 3rd, 32nd, and 33rd degree, or 33rd degree. Moorish scientists have 1, the believer degree / the neophyte or the journeyman. Your journey is beginning. Those are the mortals that the Egyptians talk about, the mortals. The 2nd degree is faith, the scholar. That's those who had attained the inner vision. You see the connection. And the 3rd would be the masters or the creators or the sons of light. The adepts, the fruition degree. The same principle applies to colleges and universities. You have your associate's degree, you have your bachelor's degree, and then you have your master's or your doctoral degree. So these doctorals, they can create other teachers. See the creators or the sons of light. See that connection right there? During the first 4 centuries of the Christian era, excuse my typo, the religion of Egypt continued unbattened and uninterrupted. But after the edict of Theodosius, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I don't speak Greek. As the end of the 4th century AD, ordering the closing of Egyptian temples. So this Christian ordered the closing of our ancient schools. Christianity began to spread more rapidly, and both the religion of Egypt and that of Greece began to die. During the 6th century AD, however, Justinian issued a 2nd edict which propagated Christianity among the Nubians. We already know, our people know who the Nubians are. So again, they were ending Islam because the Egyptian mystery system is Islamic science. So they closed that and put Christianity there. So when you see the Moors coming in and spreading Islam in that area, it was to combat Christianity. These so-called scholars won't tell you that. The dirty Moors. Okay. The Egyptian mysteries had become the ancient world religion. Now, if you look at the Quran questions for Moorish children, aka the 101s, question number 17 and 18, what is your religion? Islam. Is that an old-time religion or a new religion? It's an old religion. That's the answer, you see? See that connection? Drawley, remember, he was an Egyptian adept student. So again, spreading through the Roman Empire and including Italy, Greece, Asia Minor, and various parts of Europe. This continued under different names. This is key to knowing that Islam is one of the many names for Kemetic / Egyptian mystery systems. Long after Justinian's Edict of Tolerance granted to the Christians. Right, so keep that in mind. The Egyptian mystery systems continued under different names. You see? The abolition of Egyptian mysteries was to create opportunity for the adoption of Christianity. You see that? This was the problem. The Roman government felt that Egypt was now conquered in arms and reduced to her knees. But in order to make the conquest complete, it would be necessary to abolish the mysteries, which still controlled the religious minds of the ancient world. It was a political move for them to spread Christianity, not a belief system. You see what I'm saying? The Egyptian mysteries and the philosophical schools of Greece were closed by the edicts of Theodosius in the 4th century AD and that of Justinian in the 6th century AD, 529. And as a consequence, intellectual darkness spread over Christian Europe and Greco-Roman world for 10 centuries. Again, when the Europeans came here, what did they do? They burned books. You see? During the Persian, Greek, and Roman invasions of North Africa, large numbers of Egyptians fled not only to the desert, Saracens, Moors, and mountain regions, but also the adjacent lands of Africa, Arabia, and Asia Minor. When they say Asia Minor, they're talking about the quote-unquote Middle East. If there's a Middle East, there must be a Middle West. Asia Minor. where they lived and secretly developed the teachings which belonged to their mystery systems. So they're doing it in secret. Why? Because they were fleeing from European oppression. In the 8th century AD, the Moors, i.e. natives of Mauritania in North Africa, invaded Spain. 711 AD, under Tariq ibn Zayd, and took with them the Egyptian culture, which they had preserved. Knowledge in the ancient days was centralized, i.e. it belonged to a common parent and system, i.e. the wisdom, teachings, or mysteries of Egypt, which the Greeks used to call Sophia. As such, the people of North Africa, Moors, were the neighbors of the Egyptians and became the custodians of Egyptian culture. Remember, the capital dominion of Moroccan Empire is Egypt, which they spread through considerable portions of Africa, Asia Minor, and Europe. Right? During their occupation of Spain, the Moors displayed with considerable credit the grandeur of African culture and civilization. Moors are Africans. You see? North America is Africa. So when our people say Pan-African, they should be saying we're Moors. The schools and libraries which they established became famous throughout the medieval world. Science and learning were cultivated and taught. The schools of Cordoba, Toledo, Seville, and Saragossa attained such celebrity that, like their parent Egypt, attracted students from all parts of the Western world. And from them arose the most famous African professors that the world has ever known. This is from Moorish teachings. In medicine, surgery, astronomy, and mathematics. But these people, Moors from North Africa, did more than merely distinguish themselves in Spain. They were really recognized, they were really the recognized custodians of African culture to which the world looked for enlightenment. Now, if you look up one of Obama's speeches that he made in Egypt or Kemet, he said, America has a debt to Islam. This is what he's talking about. And then he admitted that the American Constitution is derived from Muslim law. This is what he's talking about. Do you see the connection to our prophet, Noble Drew Ali, telling us that we are home and the Europeans would be just if they had an Asiatic president? Do you see that connection now? Are you starting to see that? When our foremothers and forefathers entered into Europe, called Al-Andalus, to civilize them, we didn't charge them rent to cultivate their lands. We knew of the importance of civilizing the uncivilized for the greater good of humanity. Now do you see the importance of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People? And when Drew Ali said, if the Europeans and other nations are helping me, why not you? It's your problem, meaning it's our problem. Now then you would have to do, research on the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, Article 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 31, and 32, referencing the right to our natural resources, thus the ability to discharge rent, heat, water, gas, and electricity bills, because they're not bills. We can't be charged for our own things. Think about this. If there are a few uncivilized villagers living upstream from your village, and they are constantly polluting the water, wouldn't you go upstream to teach them not to do so? The same principle applied when our ancestors civilized the pale-skinned nations of Europe from 711 to 1492. It is a shame that the direct descendants of the very mothers and fathers of civilization, the creators of language, arts, and sciences, won't even pick up a book. That's a shame. This is done by design. The European occupiers of our lands have made it a point to instill in our minds to shun literature. Often in their schools of indoctrination, we read how our ancestors were burned, raped, and hung. The constant reminder of such horrific events will turn any young mind away from literature. But I say to you, there are many great works that our ancestors are credited for. It should be in the interest of all Moorish Americans to seek out those marvelous creations, etc. Then you will comprehend the deeper meaning behind the words, Moors, study yourselves, spoken by the prophet. Not only to study our higher self and lower self, but our history. He told us that he brought us something to shout about. I can't even count how happy I am, or I have been, reconnecting myself deeper to the great works of our Moorish bloodline. I trust the same joy, delight, pride, and happiness will flood your hearts and minds eye as it has mine. What an inspiration our ancestors are. How proud am I to be a Moorish American? And I say that with delight. We are Asiatics. Remember, Dwelly said, "Come all ye Asiatics of North America, hear the truth, the divine truth about nationality and birthright." In order to gain a political standing here in America, the Europeans have always had to infiltrate our political bodies, mastering what they have done to our fellow Moors in Al-Andalusia, Spain. The colonizers have always used our own, i.e. sellouts and dirty Moors, to help destroy our strongholds and political confederations. The Europeans could never successfully kill off any of our movements, confederations, political bodies, organizations, etc. So instead, they resorted to logistical implementations of inserting informants into various organizations to slow them down or divert the energies into passivity. This is why Dwelly said, "I want active Moors, not passive Moors." As an example, when the Europeans first colonized the Narragansett territory and confederation of Moors, starting with the European Roman clergyman / infiltrator Roger Williams, circa, which means around the year 1636, creating the Providence colony, it was imperative to remove the strong political structure and administration of the Narragansett Confederation of Moors, which is present-day Rhode Island. It's really the Narragansett territory. And they're Moors, not Indians. Narragansett Moors, not Narragansett Indians. You see the difference? And here's an excerpt taken from the secret military document, Executive Order 11490/King Alfred Plan /Rex 84, and this was released around 1969. So I'm going to skip this part, but you can read that if you want. It is necessary to use minority leaders designated by the president is in much the same manner in which we use minority members who are agents with central and federal. They're agents. They're inserted to slow down our movements. You see? And I expound on this in my other book, Are You Confused About Law? Now here's from the book, History of the State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations by Samuel Green Arnold, Volume 1, 1636 to the 1700s. All right. Now the seat of these chiefs, the Pokanoket, right? The Wampanoags, the seat was at Mount Hope, and it's really Mount Hope Bay, B-E-Y. That's a Moorish title of nobility. Mount Hope Bay, in what is now the town of Bristol. So the chief of the Wampanoags and the Pokanoket tribe, his seat was right here in the Narragansett territory. And the dominions was from right here all the way over here. That's an hour and 5 minute drive in a car. Back then, before cars, we were ruling from here. Our dominion extended over here. You see how Europeans had to remove that from us? That knowledge from us? Look at that. Look how powerful that person is. Mm-hmm. That chief is. All over here to Plymouth? You have to have power for that. It continues. West of the Pokanoket country, embracing the islands in and around Narragansett Bay. Again, Moorish title. It's really B-E-Y. The eastern end of Long Island was nearly the whole mainland as far as Pawtucket River, was a powerful tribe of the Narragansetts, including several subordinate tribes, all owing the sway. Remember, I broke this down. This is a Latin word. It means a wise person. And this is also a Latin word meaning ecclesiastical power. So remember Moorish, it's Moorish Latin. So these so-called Indian chiefs have Moorish Latin names. That's incredible, right? So these people owed, they were subordinate to the Narragansett. Now, whenever they say tribe and stuff like that, it's really confederation. These are really political factions that we're talking about. So the Narragansett would be like the state of Rhode Island, the governor, right? And then the other subordinate tribes would be like the cities. You see, and this was our dominion. Look at this.
So this is all.
Narragansett Moors controlled all of this, and they'll have these dotted lines of the current divisions that the Europeans divided up our empire here.
So you would have to have order and some
order,
type
structure,
of system to rule over all this land, but yet they call them savage
exactly.
tribes.
So remember in the earlier quote, it said it was just in the realm of the imagination. Look at this dominions. No savage is controlling this, and then you'll see these lines. This is how they divided up our empire. And if you ask a lot of these people around here, they never even left Providence because this is their home. You see what I'm saying? They just split us up in the mind. Look at this illustrious history that we're kept away from in their so-called schools. This is why I'm doing this, a sense of ownership. Our people need to know this. And then I break down the Latin names right here. Wise, see that? Now, this is a continuation. Traditions speak of the tribe, talking about the Nahegans, as a fierce and warlike, excuse my typos, race, extending their conquest from the main over the islands. They coined money. How are we savages and we're coining money? How are we uncivilized and we're coining money? And we're skilled in various branches of manufacture, so we're manufacturing things and coining money. Money is gold and silver. Coined money? That's gold and silver. Roger Williams, sought friendship with the Narragansett, and by kindness and attention making them presents and visiting them, it proved well for him and for New England that this intercourse was maintained. So they had to infiltrate. They had to appear as friends because this was our dominion. Remember, it's more of a confederation than tribe. Tribe means family. It's multiple families that were controlling this. So the principal tribes were the Massachusetts, but that's not their real name. Of the east, the Poconokeets, which is the Wampanoags, inhabiting the Plymouth, Rain, and including among the subordinate tribes, the Wampanoags who dwelt around Mount Hope Bay. Look at the spelling. They kept it the same way, Bay. And that's always associated with water. Moors are what? Seafaring people. That's a Moorish title of nobility. The Narragansett, who inhabited nearly the rest of state Rhode Island, including the islands, and the Pequot, who with the Mohegans soon blended and occupied the whole of Connecticut, etc. The Mohawks, etc. You see? And they say Narragansett were the most powerful tribes in New England. Now look at the dominion. And it said the Narragansett had extended their conquest over all eastern tribes. In that time, their dominion spread from, my typo. But from Pawtucket River in Connecticut to Merrimack. That's New Hampshire. Close to Maine. So this is where our dominions was. All of this. That's a 2-hour drive. Now, that's a drive now. With cars. Back then, there were no cars. This is the power of Moors. We had this on lock. All of this. But now they divide this up. Call this Massachusetts. Call that New Hampshire. Call up here Maine. Call this small Rhode Island. Call that Connecticut. You see, this is the division, escheating, and conversion of our estate. Our people need to know that we've always been here. And our power reigned, our seat from Mount Hope Bay extended over here, over there, that way. You know, and if you're watching the screen, you'll see as my mouse cursor is moving. Right? And here's more of certain tribes paying the Narragansett tribute. You know, that's taxes. Right? And then again, under the policy of the Narragansett rule, became the most commercial and civilized of any natives. And they talk about formal treaties. And then they talk about how certain people, you know, took side with the English to overthrow the power of the Narragansett. That's the infiltration again. And then in the same book, it talks about as soon as the deed was obtained. A deed isn't ownership. Again, that's the conversion. No actual transfer took place. See, that's page 70 of the book. This line is with regard to obtaining the right to use the lands. A deed of trust is not ownership. Allodial title is the only form of superior ownership of any land. You can also see my book, Are You Confused About Law, the section about the Bureau of Indian Affairs, starting at page 133. Dealing with matters of the Willie Lynch syndrome, as mentioned in my book, Are You Confused About Law, it was imperative for the European colonizers to take the mind and leave the body. The so-called black man and Native American Indian is/are the same people, divided in the mind only. You see the dominion of the Narragansett Confederation from what you call present-day Rhode Island to what you call present-day New Hampshire? That's our dominion. Not so-called governor of Rhode Island and governor of Massachusetts and governor of Connecticut and governor of New Hampshire. That's ours. This is the point of the Moorish Dominion book. So you know this is ours. Reclaim what is yours. You see? It is important for us to know that there are sellouts/dirty Moors among us that promote the black and Indian game. And it is a game. These dirty Moors are co-conspirators/familiars who work with the colonizers to rob their own people. Now, this excerpt is from The Culture of Native North Americans. Likewise, it would have been hard for the Europeans in North America to achieve their goals without the support of Native American allies. Such alliances were initiated by the indigenous parties who expected to gain their own advantages in the battle against their enemies. That was page 20. This is why Drew Ali said, I desire for my people to know their higher self and lower self. You're trying to gain some type of advantage over your own brother? And you're taking the side of a foreigner before your own? That's a sin. That's ignorance. That's lower self. And again, Drew Ali said, we started following after the idol gods of Rome, of Europe. See? There is a pendulum swinging back towards the Europeans, their karmic debt, ready to sever their hands that have lived by the sword and destroyed the Moorish nation. Yet there are Moors that keep clinging to those names and principles, sellouts, that delude to slavery, pushing back against the momentum of the pendulum, giving the Europeans time. Those denationalized Moors that are holding the blade of the pendulum are preventing it from harming their European masters and are wondering why their hands are getting cut. Negro, black, colored, Indian, Spanish, Puerto Rican, and a host of other European brand names and principles, idol god worship, is what is preventing nature from granting us our reparations. Reparation means to repair a nation. I trust that this treatise will connect you back to your ancestral estate here in America. I trust that this information has given you a sense of ownership of this land, pride and holy zeal towards bettering your/our condition as a people. Like Drew Ali said, if you don't do anything else, proclaim your nationality. And here's an excerpt from my book, Are You Confused About Law, about the Moorish movement. The Moorish divine and national movement, that's the Trinity right there, is guided by the great God Allah, to which his prophet and noble, Drew Ali, established several Moorish science temples on American soil to help facilitate the reversion of our estate. So remember, Europeans are converting it, so we have to get it by reversion. So conversion and reversion. We're on the reversioner side because we're trying to take back what's ours. That's the just hereditaments that I put in the beginning, and the just post limini, which I put in the beginning. We're taking back what's already ours as if we weren't removed of it. That's the purpose of the temple. The social and political operations of the Moorish divine and national movement started officially, in quotations, because there was work happening prior to that, with the old Canaanite temple, established and founded by Drew Ali in 1913. It's a civic organization first. It then became the Moorish Holy Temple of Science in 1925. Considering the movement became largely religious, remember, Christianity, that was their political motive. We're taking it back to Islam, right? The temples then adopted a religious affidavit and changed name in 1928 to the Moorish Science Temple of America. And that's what you have on the back of the questionnaire. That's the affidavit, that's proof. Each temple is to teach our people that we are not Negroes, blacks, coloreds, Spanish, nor Indians, as well as to teach those things necessary to become better men and women within society. Drew Ali made it a point that he desired for us to know of our higher self and lower self, so we may cleanse ourselves of the cares of the world and take our places amongst the affairs of men, and administrate our own free national government, inclusive of the teaching of jurisprudence and enforcement of our American Constitution. Now, it's important that Drew Ali said, I want my people to know their higher self and lower self and learn to love instead of hate, because I personally have been into a lot of these like conscious Facebook groups, and it's always, all I can see is hate, how much they hate how the so-called European or so-called white man, who they keep calling white, he's not white, he's European, is quote-unquote stealing their culture. But since we are the mothers and fathers of civilization, there's nothing else to mimic except for us. So why are you upset that they're honoring it and you're not because you think you're black? At least they're appreciating our culture and they're honoring it. So stop hating. See what they're doing. Realize that they're honoring you. You see? Learn of that lower self. Remember, perspective will change your life. Temples are to teach history, as history and law must be taught hand in hand. The temples are also established to deal with the now de facto United States Corporation Company that has overthrew the Moorish imperial divan in 1861, posturing as legitimate government. It has been proven that these European colonizers will not bring us justice. This is one of the reasons why, in the Divine Constitution and Bylaws, Act 5, Drew Ali mentions schools within every temple, because from our schools come the leaders of the nation. Those leaders will hopefully establish jural societies, businesses, hospitals, universities, restaurants, inclusive of maintaining a national treasury, and all other things necessary to continue the upliftment of our people and humanity as a whole. And if you study when Drew Ali was on the scene, he had Moorish fisheries, Moorish cookie shops. He was selling his own herbs. He had his own farmland. This is what they call, quote-unquote, Black Wall Street. It's around the same time Drew Ali was on the scene. There are no coincidences. Within every temple, there is to be a member chosen to represent the, quote, grand body, unquote, to which that grand body is to elect, quote, the 7 eyes of Allah, unquote, also known as the Supreme Grand Council, to which will elect the Supreme Grand Chairman. At the time, Drew Ali was Supreme Grand Chairman because he's the prophet, he created this. The Supreme Grand Council is to treat issues arising from temples that are outside of the temple sheikh's jurisdiction. So this is kind of like the federal government, you see. And there would be kind of like a Congress. The Supreme Grand Chairman would be the president, in a way, if you were to relate it to what people can understand right now. As well as to treat the affairs and or disputes between temples. So that's, again, federal jurisdiction. Supreme Court has jurisdiction between issues between states. So that would be so-called like the temples, in a way, you see. Inclusive of deciding which temples are out of order, aligning them up and holding them to what Drew Ali established to ensure the movement aspect of the Moorish divine and national movement. Because you'll see a lot of so-called rogue Moors or independent Moors saying so-and-so is not teaching more science or someone else isn't. But you don't have the power to decide that. Mm-hmm. Supreme Grand Council has that power. So if you're not a member of Supreme Grand Council, your opinion is invalid. Here's a quote from Hold Sessions of the Moorish Science Body. The Supreme Grand Council, this is Drew Ali's words. The Supreme Grand Council will have power and duty to control and supervise all the affairs and properties of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and they will be the sole judge of what constitutes conduct injurious to the order, peace, interest, or welfare of the organization, or at variance with its constitution and bylaws, also the rules and regulations made by the prophet, and shall be the sole judge of the sufficiency of the evidence by which such conduct is shown. So they're the judge. They're like the Supreme Court. Again, they're the federal quote-unquote federal government of the Moorish Imperial Divan or the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Moorish Divine and National Movement, through the Moorish Divine and National Movement, you will regain knowledge of self. Your true nationality and identity will be restored to you by you through the nationalizing process. Nationality restores your political status. Your political status relates to the enforcement of rights and privileges as it pertains to which rights and privileges you have. Status is your standing, state, or condition as it relates to the rest of the community, as well as third parties, being the government and or other nationals, etc. It also means estate, as it deals with the matters pertaining to one's ability to manage their estate and their affairs, inclusive of the ownership of property. Now you have to remember Christian black codes of 1724, blacks, Negros, Indians, Spanish, Latinos can't own property. This is when you go into law, like Drew Ali said, if you doubt whether my philosophies are untrue, go to those who know law. And then if you go to a law book, a mortgage isn't recognized as ownership. And we talked about this in our other videos. Indian title isn't recognized as ownership. You're supposed to learn this at the temple. When your status is correct, you are no longer placed in the Christian black codes, nor in the civilly dead status, dead in the eyes of the law. When people often talk about racism, which is in fact genocide, they often think that these Europeans, falsely referred to as white, do not like us because of our skin tone. That, in fact, is not true. The reason that we are facing these harsh mistreatments is to keep us in a civilly dead and non-descendible status, which again allows them, Europeans, to continue to administer our government and lands, as we are Aboriginal and indigenous to this North American continent by heritage. Again, Drew Ali said before the Great Earthquake, and again that European from the University of Florida, Pangea, 250 million years ago. We're Aboriginal and indigenous, and we are Moors. See? The political aim is to keep us in a subservient position and live off our virtues. That is terrorism. This is our situation, and it is not racism. The continued genocidal operations of the Inquisition against our people that began in Europe and has not ended. Even with the modern day school systems, they are deliberately set up to not teach us historical truths so that we stay in a subservient position. See the philosophy of the General Education Board, quote by Frederick T. Gates, the business advisor to John D. Rockefeller, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The facts can be gruesome and ugly. Yet in order to fix a problem, we must be able to clearly and specifically identify what that problem is. If your car has a flat tire, you don't go to the mechanic and ask him to look at the engine. We are facing genocide. Why are we asking to end racism? In the flat tire situation, you'd ask the mechanic to fix the hole in the tire or to fill the tire with air. That would be the remedy. Dealing with genocidal situations here in America, considering our people have not nationalized, the United Nations are doing what they can by establishing the Special Committee of 24 to deal with decolonization. That's our remedy, decolonization. Nationalizing and decolonization. But the only way to truly cure the issue is for us to nationalize. Then we will have the power of imperium to say who can and cannot be on our lands. Your nationality alone does not fix the issues. It is the combined forces of your knowledge and what you do with it, movement, that will fix the issues and problems that we face today. This is why Nabu Ali said, I have given you all it takes to save a nation. Now save yourselves. And that was an excerpt from my book, Moorish Dominions, to give our people a sense of ownership of this land that we call America today. Now back to the PowerPoint. If you do nothing else, proclaim your nationality, and that begins in the mind. Submitting proclamation papers are merely a formality, a courtesy to place others on notice. The nationalization process begins and ends in the mind only. No one can sell you nationalization packages. Nationality is free here and abroad, and you can find that out by reading Drali's literature. And here's Act 6 of the Divine Constitution and Bylaws. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, And we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel. That means land. Look that up in the law dictionary. That means part of land of this said government. And know that they are not Negroes, color folk, black people, or Ethiopians, because those names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Caveat emptor, remember, Moors are men upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones and follow the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. Now, I know this sounds repetitive, but this is for a reason. Again, nationality alone will not cure anything. It will not get you out of trouble. Your mind, the way you think, your actions, and the way you handle your affairs is your/our salvation. You don't just say I'm a Moor and then people stop beating you up. Remember, we're under European colonial occupation. In closing, a professor at the University of Rhode Island wrote in an article that they found Moorish seafarers had settled on the shores of America prior to Columbus. They also stated in the article that this, quote, newfound information could rewrite history, unquote. And here's the link to the page. Also in the article it says, we were expecting to find traces of prehistoric Native American settlements, as we have in the area for the past decades. We were not prepared to find 9th century clay pots containing ancient manuscripts written in Arabic language. This is by Professor Ivan, I believe I'm saying that right. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. I don't want to butcher it. But he was in charge of the research team. Also, part of that link, it says, Islamic medieval scholars Karim ibn Falah from the University of Massachusetts has determined that the age of the manuscripts is from the 9th century based on the Kufic scripts of the manuscript. Kufic script of the manuscript. So it is 9th century. The reason most of us are unaware of our Moorish bloodline, pedigree, and nobility is due to the John D. Rockefeller state-funded public schools. And here's the link to where I got this quote. This is from the Philosophy of the General Education Board. The present education conventions fade from their minds, and unhampered by tradition, we work our own goodwill upon a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning, or men of science. We have not to raise up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of whom we have an ample supply. They aren't going to teach us anything. This is from around 1902. And then they got major funding in 1913. Guess who also was on the scene in 1913? Noble Drew Ali. There are no coincidences. They've been combating our prophet since the beginning. Mm-hmm. They knew he was coming. The task we set before ourselves is very simple, as well as a very beautiful one. They're talking about keeping us dumb is beautiful. For them, this is what we're dealing with. To train these people as we find them to a perfectly ideal life just where they are. So people think, getting this mortgage, being in debt, you know what, that's fine. Mm-hmm. They think, I have this job at McDonald's, you know what, that's fine. That's what they want us to feel. Again, that's Frederick T. Gates, chairman of the board, and business advisor to John D. Rockefeller. Here, the entire purpose of the current indoctrination system, guised as education, is to keep us absent of our illustrious Moorish history. Again, this is why if you talk to so-called people in these HBCUs, historically back colleges and universities, they don't learn about the Moors, right? Our heritage, our culture. The absence of our nationality makes us mentally incompetent. Thus, in law, trust law, the laws of nature, and heirship, we are non-descendible, thus unable to inherit. Our non-descendible wardship and stateless status, look these words up in the law dictionary, look up wardship and stateless status, is what provides reason for the colonial Europeans' mandate to continually administer our land, estate, labor, lives, and property. Again, The denationalization is for escheating purposes. Our civiliter mortuus status is then presented on the Europeans' behalf as a burden that we place on them. So again, this is the Section 8 and stuff like that. They portray it to the rest of the world as these so-called blacks are a burden. This is why you'll hear that Bush said the reason why the United States corporation company is in debt is because of so-called black people. Mm-hmm. They're making it seem like they're taking care of us. Yet it is they that have removed our foundation and continue to suppress us, along with the sellouts and dirty Moors claiming to be black and Indians, further removing us from our birthrights. As Moors, once nationalized, nature bestows upon us the power of imperium in full life, as opposed to civiliter mortuus. Imperium is Moorish Latin, a legal phrase meaning the right to command, which includes the right to employ the force of the state to enforce the laws. This is one of the principal attributes to the power of the executive. So since we're the heirs of the land, this is our land. We tell the Europeans what to do. Again, rights of indigenous people says we have the right to our land and resources back, and the state shall take effective measures and where appropriate special measures ensuring we continue our economic growth and gain and stuff like that. And since we have the right to command, since we're the indigenous people, we're the heirs, we have imperium. Hey, Governor of Rhode Island, Governor of New York, Governor of Massachusetts, Governor of Connecticut, Governor of California, Governor of whatever so-called state, give us enough funding so we can support whatever it is we need to support. That's imperium. But you can't do that in civilly dead status. You can't do that Negro, black, colored, Indian. You can only do that as a Moor, because you're connected to this land by heritage as Moors, not as black, Negro, colored, none of that. Moors. As defined by the Inter-American or Organization of American States, because you got to remember the United States isn't an American state. It's a corporation company, right? The American states are Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, Cuba, Colombia, Venezuela, Chile, Guatemala. You see? This is what they say about who an indigenous person is. This is Section 1, Article 1, definition. In this declaration, indigenous people are those who embody historical continuity with societies which existed prior to the conquest and settlement of their territories by Europeans. Now, since Pangea, 250 million years ago, the Olmecs, we've been here. That's us. And to even help alleviate with the massive brainwashing that the Europeans put on us, they also include an alternative definition, as well as peoples brought involuntarily to the New World, who freed themselves and tied themselves back to cultures from which they've been torn. Because the Europeans keep telling our people they took us from somewhere else. So even if you think that, you're still recognized as an indigenous person. You see? And here's a list of the Organization of American States. You got Argentina, Barbados, Belize, Bolivia, Brazil, even though Canada and the United States don't belong here. But since they're administrating Morocco, North America, they put their names down. Because remember, they got us in a subservient position where our people we don't know law, we don't know ourselves, so we're not going to represent ourselves. Because we're technically wards of the state. But as a Moor, you're not a ward of the state. We're still Moors, but when I say as a Moor, I'm talking about when you have the consciousness of you know your bloodline. You don't think you're black, colored, Indian. You know that this is your land. That was the whole point of the Moorish dominions. See? Who else we got here? Colombia, Guatemala, Grenada, Peru. All of these are considered American states. Not state of Rhode Island. State of Rhode Island is not an American state.
It's a corporation.
State of Delaware is not an American state. Here's the list of the American states. Look, it says member states right there. And this is from the organization AmericanStates.org. Organization of American States. State is a collection of people bound together by common law. Right? So again, Americans, one of the various copper-toned natives found in America. Look at this. Right? You got Cuba, Haiti, Puerto-Rican, Costa Rica, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Mexico. All of these various copper-toned people. Didn't Drew Ali say all of these are Muslims? The uniting of Asia. Asiatics. This is what he's talking about. So I appreciate you for listening to the excerpt from the book and watching the PowerPoint. For more information, please visit www.rvbaypublications.com It's a free online university, and you can get literature there. Just like Drew Ali said it, in order to change the people, you must change the literature. So yeah. For more independent study, please visit rebaypublications.com.
Okay, so keep in mind, after you just seen that PowerPoint presentation, keep in mind Roger Williams, right? This is what Roger Williams said. This is from his book, A Key into the Language of America. Roger Williams, 1604 to 1683. And this is on, scroll through it.
And if you're still with us,
Oh, no, it's still
you're amazing. You're amazing.
Right. Roger Williams.
Because you literally just read a book.
This is for, because our people, all right, so this is what Roger Williams said. He also referred to the Narragansett people as their language similar to Hebrew. Remember Ibri, those across the river, same culture. You see, that was the point of the Moorish Dominions book, right? He said, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. Now remember, I always said we got Roger Williams Park, Roger Williams University, Roger Williams Housing, Roger Williams Elementary. It was their acts of conversion into Catera Divina. You can't deny it, you see. All right, so when I did the video, people asked me again, I said I was going to talk about this. So I was going to talk about chain of title. So let's just go into the chain of title real quick, because the Europeans, talking about they own anything, right? And then I mentioned the quote, once they had the deed of trust isn't ownership. Only way to own property is a allodial title. So to own property, you have to have this. Right? That's the only way to own property, through the allodial title. A deed is not ownership. A deed of trust, literally, what does the word deed mean? Let's look up what the word deed means. Right? Since we're dealing with knowledge. So here's from the American Dictionary of the English Language, Noah Webster's 1828. What is a deed? A deed, right? A deed is to do something, right? That which is done. So a deed of trust is saying a trust exists. That's all it is. A deed of trust is not ownership. And we can go to the law dictionary and it'll mention it's not ownership, right? So the only way to own property is this way. Now, what the Europeans have done with their conversion, you know, they're not teaching us thing, General Education Board, is most of our people think that they have any type of ownership to the land. Because we keep calling them Americans and we think we're black, Indian, colored, whatever, right? So, when they say they got this, or this, or this, right? That's their conversion. They actually don't have it, and it's feudal as opposed to allodial. So since we're nationals, right? What does that mean? That means we're in full life, right? That means we have the imperium, the power to command, right? So since we know that this land isn't Europe, this isn't New England, any claim by a European is feudal, meaning it can be argued. You see what I'm saying? So this deed of trust can be argued, because in history there was never any more that transferred any allodial title to any European. In order to know that, you'd have to, so if any Europeans claiming they own anything, ask them for this. Ask them to see this. Chain of title. Now let's go to the Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. What is chain of title? Chain of title. Chain of title. Successive conveyance or other form of alienation affecting a particular parcel of land arranged consecutively from the government or original source of title down to the present holder. So if any Europeans claiming they own whatever, show me where any national here in America, Morocco, where any Moor gave you a loyal title of ownership to any estate. You will quickly find out that they can't produce any said document. Conversion. You see? The heirs are the true possessors, us, of the Moroccan Empire here. America. You see how it works? You see what I'm saying? So in the video where I'm talking about the land, and I'm showing the pond and all the stuff that I did with the leaves and the logs, trying to grow food for our people, because that's what we need to be doing. I got the knowledge, so now I need to act on it, right? I'm trying to get people to help. Like, just like Joelle said, if you got race pride and you think your condition could be better, help. You know what I mean? So what I did was I created the trust while studying, right? Because Taj he gives free information out. And he had up there on one of his YouTube videos, he had a quitclaim deed, the transfer of hereditaments, right? Because remember, they got us in the ward of the state status, wardship tenures, meaning they don't have to account for anything, any amount of money they make off our estate. They don't got to account for our physical bodies. They don't have to account for anything. They can do whatever they want because they're acting like they're the gods of the earth, of our land, because we won't do it, right? So they're acting as administrators. So what I did was, I did the quitclaim deed. I'm claiming the deed, reversion of estate, and I'm turning it into an allodial title of ownership. Now you can just watch Taj's video because he breaks it all down. I copied the structure and I added other things because I've been studying on my own. I made it mine. Not because I copied what Taj did and I said, oh, hopefully this works. No. I did my own study. I studied what these certain Latin words meant, and I added imperium in re perpetuum in re testimonium, which means in perpetual testimony to settle this thing forever. Mm-hmm. This is mine. Not no Europeans. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So study what. I'm gonna say Taj because I got it from him. He's the master, right? And you can just look up that video. I think it's called Reversion of Estate, but just look up his videos anyway, right? So what I did was, just like in the video, he says you claim the longitudinal and latitudinal coordinates of the Earth, not the whatever address, not this. You don't claim that. The 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, lane, drive, whatever. You claim the longitude and the latitude. And in the video, you'll see he does the estate description. So he does 43 degrees, or let's say 32 degrees west, whatever, eastwardly 2,000 feet to a point, and then, whatever to another point, whatever, another point, whatever, another point, approximately however many acres. Mm-hmm. And everything on it. Because remember, rights of indigenous people have the right to our lands back. You don't need to pay for it. Make your claim. Mm-hmm. Remember in the definition of mortgage, until it's debarred by someone's latches. Or their claim, their adverse claim. That's what Taj is talking about. Make an adverse claim. Mm-hmm. Because right now it's just, right? Right now it's just Europeans claiming stuff, right? Doing stuff, and then we're dead. So we're laying down because we think we're this. All we gotta do is stand up and say, hey, you don't own nothing, I own it, right? And then these guys, since they're feudal, they can't do anything. They're like, oh shit, and they have to listen to us, right? Now, they can start ignoring people when it's just one person standing up on the birthright. But like Drew Ali said, where there is unity, there is strength. Together we stand, divided we fall. So if one person's claiming land over here, maybe you should get with them. So then you can claim land over there and help those people in that project complex. Because it's like where I'm at, there's like project places, and there's open land there, and there's pots of land just abandoned because our people don't have a sense of ownership. You see what I'm saying? But anyway, claim the land. That's what I did, and then I sent. So I'll read you the last part that I sent to the Europeans. So I did research on the land of who, what, real estate, whatever. I know it's a fraud anyway, but I just want to see who was claiming ownership of it. So I sent them a copy. And I told them to transfer the deed to me. Right? And I said, right? Whereas Peter C. Hayes, these are the people, I put it in regular case and all caps, because on their website they had it in all caps. So I'm addressing you and your straw. You ain't getting away from this. Carl F. Sherry, Brett White, Todd Lickerman, and all other parties, agents, and or actors operating through and under the foreign private corporation Cushman and Wakefield / Hayes and Sherry commercial real estate, our hereditaments aren't subject to commerce. And retail brokerage company located at care of 146 Westminster, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903 are acting as feudal lords, look that up, feudal lords, and escheating my essential estate. I, being a competent heir in solo proprio, ipso facto, ipso jure, in harmony with nature, do hereby rightfully demand that the trustees, Peter C. Hayes, Carl F. Sherry, and I'm naming these people. I'm not saying that Cushman and Wakefield need to do it because that's it can't do anything. I'm naming the people and the thing, right? Who they work for. And all the parties, agents, and actors operating through and under the before mentioned private corporation company surrender, remiss, release, and forever quit claim all hereditaments, corporal and corporal, to me, Jamal Talib Abdullah, a natural person. All right? And then I continue. And then I gave them oops, keep messing up. There's so many pages here. But I gave them a time limit. And I said, if you don't respond to this within 30 days, then this allodial, quitclaim deed, transfer hereditament stands as fact that is mine. And then on the video, you'll see it's stamped by the Secretary of State because I put them on notice too. I wasn't asking them. I said, this is here. There you go. So you know that I'm out here doing stuff. Stamped. And that's what people see, right? And so keep all of that in mind. 1861, right? I know I'm kind of all over the place right now. But it's important to know, 1861. Congress adjourned Scene D. Now, when we were talking about the coups in Cordoba and stuff like that, that was the coup. This was the coup. Coup d'etat is an internal overthrow. So they stopped operating as government. And this is where, in James Trafficant, his speech, right? At the House of Representatives, House Joint Resolution 192. You're talking about the bankruptcy of the United States. And it reads, all officers and offices and departments of the United States exist in name only. Right? So they're not government. So when you're doing the claim on the land, know that you're not asking for anything. Not asking none of these Europeans for nothing. You're telling them, actually not even telling them, you're putting them on notice. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You're not telling them what you're doing, you're informing them of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Not telling them like, hey dad, can I do, like, hey dad, I'm doing this. No. I'm doing this.
The same thing is if you have tenants in your house,
yeah.
you're gonna notify them that, hey, I'm gonna be doing new wiring or something, or I'm gonna be fixing the roof on Thursday.
Yep.
Because they're still existing on this land.
They're de facto.
So you're just notifying them what's going on.
Yeah, they're de facto. Now, I did the Moorish dominions first, so we can kind of get people who don't know that they're Moors into the information. And I also know there's certain people who already know certain things, so I'm not going to go into everything. You know what I mean? But, so this is from United States Congressional Record, March 17, 1993, Volume 33, page H, Tag 1303. Speaker Representative James Trafficant Jr. of Ohio addressing the House. So he starts by saying, Mr. Speaker, we are here now in Chapter 11. Members of Congress are official trustees presiding over the greatest reorganization of a bankrupt entity, of any great bankrupt entity in the world, the United States government. We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. There are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. He continues to say, it is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933, 48 Statute 1, Public Law 89 to 719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent. House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress, in session June 5, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereignty of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental offices, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. What does that mean? That means they're not government. Mm-hmm. They're just trustees.
And that's like the same thing I was showing you in the book yesterday.
Yeah.
That they state right in there.
It's not anyone else's law except for theirs because they're private. Mm-hmm. Again, Title 28, Chapter 6, Subchapter 176, Subsection 3002, Number 15, under definitions, 15A, the United States is a federal corporation. So, keep that in mind when you're operating as yourself, when you're being yourself, when you're doing a quitclaim deed, and these Europeans have any challenge at all, you can ask for this. Because we already know they're operating in name only. Mm-hmm. But since they want to play the game, ask for this. Show me that's yours. Mm-hmm. Show me the chain of title. Mm-hmm. Show me who gave this to you. Mm-hmm. They can't show you, so guess what that is? Conversion, right? So,
which is fraud.
Yeah, it's fraud, and fraud has no statutes of limitations. So, this is why they always try to say, "Oh, the Indians gave us a deed of trust," and then like they'll forge some signature and they'll do something like this, like, "Oh yeah, the chief, this was the chief's signature," and they'll do like a bow and arrow, and they'll do like a feather or something like that. Like, are you serious? You know what I'm saying? It's fraud. It's fraud from the beginning. It's fraud. All right. So now, because someone asked me to kind of explain how I did it, I was on the land before I had like the paperwork finished typed up, because I just did it non-pro-tum, which means now for them, because since the land was not only abandoned by other Moors, but the Europeans that were claiming ownership over it, it was abandoned by them too. So I just said, hey, I'm an heir, I'm taking my shit back. And I used the thing that Taj had in his lecture. So, and what I did was I took it out of their hands and I put it into my family trust. Now, you want to go into, what is a trust? Just basic. What is a trust? Like, I trust you to do something. What is that? What's a trust?
It's a contract.
All law is contract, right? So, a trust, I feel like people have a misunderstanding of what a trust is. Mm-hmm. If you say, hey, can you watch my drink while I go to the bathroom? That's a trust.
Mm-hmm. It's an oral, verbal trust.
Yeah, it's a contract. It's a contract. I think if people get that understanding, like, you don't need a template.
They think it's more complicated than what it is.
Yeah, people are trying to make it more complicated than it is. Exactly.
What are you trying to pass down?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you want to administer?
What do you want to do? Exactly.
What's your goal for it? Who gets to use it?
Yeah, exactly. So here's the template to my trust. I'm not going to give all the information because it's private, right? So in the beginning, I have the official name of the trust. So whenever whenever someone buys my book, I'll have, and I send it in the mail. I'll take the receipt from the that I get from the post office. I'll put some on it, and then I'll emboss it. I'll put my family seal on it, and I put it in the records that's associated with my trust. So anyone can see, okay, you sold this many books in however many years or whatever. And then my grandchildren can look at that like, oh crap, look at what granddad did or whatever. And it's, since it's my family seal, it has the name of trust on it, so that it belongs to that trust. You know what I'm saying? So anything that has that name on it belongs to that trust. You see? And then next I have who the grantor is. Right? I just put, my name, and then I said where my power comes from. And then I said I'm vested with supreme and true allodial ownership of the trust and all assets, hereditaments, corporal and incorporeal, estates, labors, and businesses therein. So anything that goes to trust, I own it.
So wait a minute. In order to have a trust, you have to have a nationality.
Yeah, and this is what people must know.
So how are you black having a trust?
Also, people must know your trust, your business, whatever business you own, is an extension of you. So whatever your nationality is, your business has that nationality, because it's an extension of you. People need to realize that you are the one who makes things happen, not the business, not the trust. You. The trust doesn't even have to have a name. It could just be, all right, when I make money off of work or whatever, $5 is going to go on my savings. That's a trust. And it doesn't have to be with a bank. It could be under your bed.
But that's already a contract you made with yourself.
Yeah. And it's not for your immediate benefit. So there's your beneficiary. It's for whoever
you're saving up money for.
All right. Yeah. So it's very simple. Very simple. This is simple. All right. And then in mine, I put the cause. Now, I did a description because I need my prosperity to know. I mentioned fall of the Red House, Alhambra. I mentioned STQV, how they're using the all capital letters name to convert our estate. So that's the cause. This is why I'm doing this. That's in my personal trust. You see what I'm saying? And it's very lengthy. There's a few pages. What do I have next? Then I have next lineage, my pedigree. Should I spell this right? Lineage, and then because when the Europeans came here, they destroyed a lot of records and stuff like that, and they made it almost impossible for us to reconnect back with the Aboriginal people here, like the names of the families and stuff like that, because they put Christian names on us to again denationalize us, because we can't transact business in another man's name. Again, look up the Dred Scott plaintiff in error. You can't claim a right if you don't even own your own body, if you're civil to mortus. And again, look up the Sundry Free Moors Act of 1790, where the Sundry Free Moors, a mixed group of Moors, declared for the record that they were Moors and not black. Again, with the William Dungy case, 1850s, Abraham Lincoln defended the Moor, William Dungy, to clearly establish for the record that he was not black, but a Moor, because he was facing losing his property. Again, that's Christian black codes, blacks can't own anything.
he was facing losing his marriage. Again, blacks can't get married unless without the consent of their masters. That's the marriage certificates. You see what I'm saying? You see where this is going? Blacks dead, Moors not. All right. So I traced my bloodline based on, I traced my family records from what my mother told me about what my great-great-grandmother was. I figured out where she was. I looked at the social that was attached to her name, and then I figured out, okay, this tribe was regulated in that area. Oh, and then on my grandmother's, on my father's side, oh, his grandmother's from this area. You see? And then my mother's father, his grandmother's from that area. See, so I put that so my prosperity doesn't have to redo it. You see what I'm saying? Because these Europeans got our parents' minds. Like, I asked my dad, like, where's our family from? He said, oh yeah, my grandfather's from Africa. Okay, so I had to do digging, you know, and it's not because it's his fault. It's
no,
you know, but I did it so, because since that affected me, I know how it affected me negatively. Being young, not knowing where the heck anyone's from, I just know I'm here. You know, I did it so my children don't have to. And then I even put this is my personal trust. So this, you don't have to do this. This is just an example. I put, since I'm a male, I put, since I don't have the mitochondrial DNA, I can't really pass on, like, it's from the woman. So I put, you know, whoever I have you know, I beget another person with, they can get my inheritance through her, since we're mixed. You see what I'm saying? And I put that in there, mitochondrial DNA. You can look at it. And then I put the trustee and appointment and the duty of the trustee, right? Because in there I talk about who's allowed to be a trustee. They have to be of my blood. And if like, let's say I have a son and he has a wife, she can be a trustee under certain stipulations. You see what I'm saying? It can't just be y'all had a baby together, she lives over there, you live over here. No, you gotta be together. You gotta be life partners. Yeah. You can't just.
So you gotta continue to be.
Yeah, you can't just be boyfriend and girlfriend. You gotta be life partners.
Yeah.
Same thing with me. If you know what I mean, if whoever wants to be anything, you gotta be life partner. You can't just be my girlfriend. This is family stuff we're talking about. Yeah. Lineage, wealth.
So either you're gonna be in the family or not.
Yeah, and you ain't just getting it just because. You know what I mean? Yeah. No. Right, and you gotta have mental competence. So under all this, there's stipulations like who's the grantor? Why am I the grantor? How am I the grantor? Why am I doing this? And it's typed out. Like, what else do I have here? And then I have descendability and inheritances. That's kind of part of the last one. And then let's see what I got here. Seal. In this part, I'll show you this part. Right. I described the seal, what it looks like, and here's what it looks like. Right. I explain it in detail so there's no confusion. And then I explain why I chose the name in detail, again, because there's a whole story behind it. Because this is a family record. I'm handing down why am I writing books? Why am I not working for a European anymore when I have this skill? I know how to splice fiber, I know how to run copper, I know how to splice copper, I know how to install it. Why I'm not doing it for them? Why I'm doing what I'm doing? This is why I'm doing it. This is why I chose this name. This is why I chose these symbols. All right. What else I got here? And then, you know, who can use the seal? And then lastly, I have what's in the trust. Assets, estate, because I put the land in the trust. Hereditaments and inheritances. And in here, I have my library listed, all the books by the authors, so there's no confusion. You know what I mean? And that's how mine is broken down. And then what else? With the rise of the Moorish trust, we have you know, I'm not gonna get too much into detail, but we have the name of the trust, grantor, what we're doing it for. You know what I mean? Like when people say break it down and make it easier, I can't make it any easier besides doing it for you. and reading what mine says word for word. But that's private. I can't do that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But you can use this for anything. If let's say you want to do a cookie shop.
Name it. Then
Right? And you want to name it, I don't know, Moorish chips. Or chocolate chips, right? So you would put, okay, what do I want to name this thing? Oh, I want to name it Moorish chips, right? So that would be the official name of it. Just like Walmart, that's the official name of it. Who's the grantor? Oh, since I created it. Got a little fez on. And my name is Julian Bay. Okay, then I'll just put, okay, yeah, I'm the grantor. Oh, why did I create this cookie shop? To sell cookies. This don't have to be lineage. I mean, this could be something else. Or you can just skip this part. Right? Or this could be who the beneficiary is. Because people always talk about, I want something I can pass down to my children. So you can just put my children. If they don't exist, then just say my children that don't exist yet. Or my dog, or whatever, whoever. And then you can put, you're also the trustee, because you can't be the beneficiary and the trustee. Or you can put, if you have a wife, your wife's gonna run the shop. You're just, you know what I mean? Or whoever's part of the board of directors or whatever, however many people you got involved. Let's say is, your wife. You got your wife with you or whatever. She got the long hair. She got a turban. That's a turban. She's with you, right? And you just say you're the board of directors. You're the CEO. She's the president. So you put you're the CEO. She's the president, and the president would be the administrator. Right? So the trustee is the administrator. So she would be the trustee. And then you can say, okay, here's what the seal of Moorish cookie shop looks like. These are the chocolate chips, right? And then you put the crescent and the star or whatever, and that's the seal, right? That'll be the seal. And then you can put, the trustee is allowed to use the seal under whatever stipulations. If she's doing contracts with whoever, because remember, we are the trust. So if you do, let's say you get cookies from. Let's say you get chocolate chips. Who sells chocolate chips?
Chips Ahoy?
Yeah, let's say you get chocolate chips from Chips Ahoy. Right? Let's say you get chocolate chips from Chips Ahoy for your cookies. Your wife or whoever is the administrator is conducting business with the agents of Chips Ahoy. So you would just seal, like, it'd be like Moorish Chips did business with Chips Ahoy. And then the agent, your wife, signs it, seals it, puts it in the record. You see? How simpler do you want it? Right? And then, let's say, you got the store, which you would have allodial ownership of the store, right? You're Moor. You got your chimney. Moorish cookies, right? You got a drive-through so you can sell your cookies through the drive-through. This building and the land that it's on is an asset. So you can put this trust, and another trust. You know what I'm saying? Like the family trust, right? This is what the family has. The family has the Moorish cookie shop. The family also has the land under the Moorish cookie shop. So the land, the title to the land, so it would be, this is one trust, right? Let's say you got the family trust. That's everything the family owns. Under that, you got your business. Also within that, you got the land that the business is on. So this would be the corporal, this would be the incorporeal, because you're making money off of this. That's not tangible. The idea of having a cookie shop, that's incorporeal. You see what I'm saying? So both of that would fall under the family trust. It's like, just like the United States, right? The United States Corporation Company, that's their main thing. And then each state is under that. And then under that is the city. You see what I'm saying? So, is that simple enough, y'all? You see what I'm saying? And then you can say, okay, however much money, or whatever, it's not really money, but however much you make, 20% of that goes to the family trust. And then you're paying taxes to yourself.
Nice.
But not. So whatever you make, based on however many cookies you make, that's non-taxable. Whatever this building makes, that's taxable, so you can put that into your family trust. You see what I'm saying?
Looks
Did I
good.
go over everything?
Yeah.
Assets that would be in the family trust. Seal, you can use it. You know, you put your children, you know, because your children would hopefully be listed as beneficiaries anyway. So, you know what I mean? So if you're a grantor, you can name yourself the beneficiary, she's the administrator, since you're both family anyway, you're working under this. It's not complicated. Right? What else?
Sounds about right.
I mean, I feel like when I did it before, it was still simple. Like with this. That's the grantor, administrator, beneficiary. That's this. The administrator, so this would be the trustor, trustee, which these two people can be the same, and then to whom the trust is created for. So all of this, I'm saying the same exact thing. If you want it any simpler, I can't do the trust for you. You can go on Google and look up example of a trust, and it'll say it. But the main thing with this is our people need to know that they are God. You don't need a bank to have a trust in. You can have them administrate it, but to me, our goal is to get away from their stuff, to create our own banks with our own private commercial paper for our own benefit. Not using the Europeans, because remember, Riley said beggar people can't reach the highest degree of spirituality. Right? So, that. Do this, right?
Wow.
But you have to know, right? That 1861, these people claiming to be Americans, these Europeans claiming to be Americans, stopped operating as legitimate government. Right? Federal Reserve Act of 1913, that's when they created the Federal Reserve. Again, you'll see in one of my videos I mentioned in the American Constitutional Interpretation, 2nd edition, that it states on page 11, in the Constitution, it never granted Congress the power to create anything like the Federal Reserve System. Why did they do this in 1913? Because in 1861, they stopped being Congress. The United States is a private corporation company. This is their banking instrument. This is how they
regulate their banking. And then again, they took the gold out of circulation, Article 1, Section 8, and Article 10. Article 1, Section 10. All debts contracts will be paid in gold, silver. So when you go into a bank and you're getting anything, you're not getting real money. The issue is they're controlling the land. So you claim the land. So then you could put a building on it. Or you claim the land with a building already on it. But guess what you need? Well, guess what is good to have? People around you to help you do it. You see what I'm saying? Like, they got the gold. But guess where the gold comes from? They got our people's minds. But guess where the people come from? Well, we know where we come from, but guess what the people are a part of? So does that kind of make sense when Noble Joy Ali said when they leave, mountains of gold are going to be exposed to us? You see what I'm saying? Is this making sense?
Yeah.
Right? You see why it's important for our people to have connection to this land? You see why I did the Moorish Dominion book? So our people have a sense of ownership? Like, we need to make our situation better. We need to, because the Europeans aren't going to do it. Like, why are we arguing that? Like, there's certain people that know something's going on. There's certain people that don't know. Well, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people that know, but they keep.
Yeah, open your eyes, because.
Like even the Black Lives Matter thing. Our people get emotional about that, but black is pale. And then in the Bible, first it was the Word was with God, the Word was God. All things called into existence through Him, because the word God means to call upon is derived from Sanskrit uta, means to call upon, to invoke and to pour out. So each word has an energy associated to it. So when you say Black Lives Matter, black means pale, you're saying pale lives matter. This is why Europeans funded. And then again with the Tower of Babel, they take out they take out the etymology, which is denotative linguistics, which is what the word means. And they institute connotative linguistics. So when we tell the people in Black Lives Matter, stop saying you're black because you're not, they get all mad because they're dealing with emotions, not knowledge. We need to get our people dealing with knowledge. So that they can realize, like, oh, I'm wasting my time with that. I have an estate. I have land. This building is ours. If you really think about it, this library is ours. But we need our people to know that. So I really hope that Moorish Dominion book, I read the whole thing, so you don't have to read it, you just got to listen to it.
And you made a PowerPoint to go with it.
Yeah, and I really hope that this means something to someone. I mean, it means a lot to me, that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm studying it, but it's difficult to do it when you're the only one in this area doing it. You know what I mean? Because these Europeans, like, even with the land, because rights and indigenous people says they can't stop us from getting to, they can't kick us off our land. So what they did was they put a fence so I can't get to it. And then I sent them a letter and I called the Department of Transportation like, hey, open this up. They could ignore me because it's just me. But the point is, it's not because I'm claiming some land. The point is to show, like, hey, this is what our capability is. Look, I got the land. They're not saying I can't have it. They're just stopping me from getting to it to make it seem like I don't have it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, once people start seeing the game that's played.
Childish.
Yeah. They're like, oh, we're not violating the law. It's just your fences so happen to be on the side that we're claiming. You see what I'm saying? But I can't just keep sending mail and they're going to ignore it. Like, we need a voice. But anyway, once we get, like, body politic, oh, you want your cookie shop? You want your barber shop? Okay. All 20 of us, 5 of us, 10 of us, we're all going to go to the city, whoever, or the governor's office, and we're going to say, we're Moors, give us this. Not because we're begging. We need a building so we can start selling cookies. We need a building so we can start cutting hair.
Yep. Because it's their responsibility.
Rights of indigenous people. But that's the Imperium. But we need to be in a proper person, right? We need to be. In your proper person. When you're saying you're black, you're not black, so you're not in your proper person. When you're saying you're Moor, you're in your proper person. But then you also have to act like you are who you are. Mm-hmm. That's why Drew Ali said, Moors, be yourself, because that's that. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Stop trying to be black, Negro colored, following outer gods of Rome. Be yourself. Mm-hmm. Know that you have an estate. Hopefully you've seen Moorish Dominions, PowerPoint, the pictures. Hopefully you realize, oh, this is my estate. Now that you know you have one, go to a temple, learn how to administrate it, learn what you can and can't do, which there pretty much are no can'ts, unless you're violating universal law. Just don't do that. You know, realize that you are God, man and Allah are one. Chapter 1, Circle 7. Realize that if you want to create a trust, since you are the creator, since Allah is in your heart, that means you're part of Allah. And since Drew Ali said a prophet is just the thought of Allah, and then we're all thoughts of Allah, that means we can all be a prophet. That means we all have that power. All we have to do is figure out how to get to that power. So you don't need to ask anyone how to create a trust. You could literally just look it up and then create one. And then since the trust is artificial, let's say Joe Schmo makes a trust and he wants to do business with me. He's the person. He's a human being. He's doing the business, not the trust. Mm-hmm. So we do business because we're human beings, and then you set it aside in the trust. Like, it's literally that easy, and I think that's why people don't get it. Because they're looking for some complicated spider web. I gotta do this, that, boom, boom, boom. They want to feel like I did all this work when it's really, you don't have to do all of it. Figure out what a grantor is. Figure out what a trustee is. Figure out what a beneficiary is. Name them. And start doing business. If you want to cut hair, cut hair. Right here, common law. A right which is free and open is not subject to a license or tax. Since we have the right to contract, which is guaranteed within the Constitution, and on top of that, Article 20 of the Declaration on Human Rights, we have the right to contract. Let's say I'm cutting hair in this library, and I call people like, yo, Jamal's cut shop, Jamal's hack shack. I'm cutting hair in the library. If you come in, you're making an agreement to come in. I don't need a license to cut hair. If I'm saying I'm cutting hair and you come get your hair cut, you agreed. There's no violation of law. I don't need a haircutting license, beautician license. If I'm making peanut butter sandwiches, peanut butter, oatmeal, and raisin bran sandwiches, and you want to come buy them off of me, I don't need no culinary license. First of all, I'm a Moorish American. This is my land. Who are you, European, to tell me I need permission? That's what a license is, to do anything.
And then you're supposed to know caviar and torque.
Caveat and torque.
Buyer beware.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So if you come to me and I'm selling you sandwiches and it's...
You chose to come.
Yeah, you chose to come eat this sandwich. If you come to my barbershop, you chose to come get your hair cut by me. And then what did Raleigh say? Moors, don't call the European on your brother. Don't call the cops and these court people on your brother, because they're not in it for anything but to rob us. So why would you call them? Manage your own affairs. Your own free national government. That's the Joe Society. See, like the Moorish Science Temple, Raleigh was on it. Like everything that our people complain about, the salvation is the temple. Well, not the temple. Salvation is the Moorish divine and national movement. Learning that.
The temple just facilitates that.
Yeah, exactly. Like this library, this one room in the library is a temple. Right now it's a temple. I'm not an elected person, but I got some Moorish knowledge. I got the land, footage of me on the land. Clearly I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Let's help other people do it. Literally, imagine, right? My whole thing with the land was, damn, I could really grow food for free, sell it for like $1, a pound or whatever, and just run people out of business. All these Europeans that have no allegiance to our people, run them out of business, because I'm giving my people organic food for $1,
And it's all 100% profit to me anyway, because I have a allodial title, allodial ownership, meaning I'm not paying property tax, I'm not paying no one rent, I'm not paying no one nothing. So, pound of food for $1. Put Stop and Shop, Walmart, what is that other place? That fancy place? That fancy place? The organic place, Whole Foods, put them out of business. Now imagine if like 10 of us just farm that land. It's all 100% profit. And then on top of that, we don't got to pay rent to these people because it's our land. Right? Read the rights of indigenous people. Look up change of title. What else? Look up the Inter-American definition or Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People. Get yourself Black's Law Dictionary. Or just go to a law dictionary. Realize that you and Allah are one and the same. Therefore, you don't need anyone else to tell you what to do. It's just get the information. You know what I mean? Like, people need to realize like that's the temple's job. The temple's job is to teach you like, hey, these people don't own anything. You're the real owner. This is how you do. Since we're the owners, the allodial title is in us. So all you got to do is put that on paper, make the claim known, and then that's it. Like, what else? What else are you expecting? What more are you expecting, honestly?
Yeah.
And then any European is going to come to you and say, this is mine? You're European. This is not Europe. That's like a Russian coming over here saying, this is mine. You're from Russia. A Frenchman coming there saying, this is mine. You're from France. A Chinese person, this ain't China. All family, but this isn't your land. Bye. Right? So, but yeah, I feel like if I just keep going, I'll just be rambling. Because to me it's simple, and I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. I can't break it down any more than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how to. Maybe I will eventually, but that's all I got. You see what I'm saying?
Do you want to sign out?
Yeah. Hopefully, I just have a feeling, you know, if something clicked up here or something clicked right here, I got you. You know what I mean? Like, I helped. That's all I really need. So, thank you for tuning in. Again. All glory. Oh yeah, I kind of want to talk about this, right? Never let our national standard touch the ground. Don't drag it on the ground. Don't crumble it up. Fold it. Just don't let it touch the floor, please. All right, when I was in the Marines, in boot camp, we had the guide on, and you know we were told like, don't let any other platoon take it. Don't let any other drill instructor take it. If they take it, you chase them. And they would test us. And we would all mob to whoever it was. Respect your mother, please. They generally say don't desecrate the American flag. Don't speak bad about it. It's the American flag. Don't let it touch the ground. Like I was watching some video of some Moor. He had it like in his pocket. And he was waving around. It was dragging against the floor. Like, what are you doing? This represents a people, and you're dragging it across the floor? That's crazy. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, yeah, thank you for tuning in. Study, study, study. Peace.